first, let me say this. Thanks for finally coming, Tony.
I know. Thank you for having me, and I appreciate it. And it hasn't been. Not that I've wanted to. It's just very different view from being on the consumer side than being on the producer side on what they'll let you do and what you can do.
Do you find it hard on the end user side because you get an inrush of everybody wanting a little bit of your time? You don't want to be rude. You're trying to, because the toes you step on today are connected to the ass you're kissing tomorrow, right? So you have to be like, I don't want to blow you off or ghost you, but I don't really want to spend a lot of time with you.
No, I think what I've realized now on this side, there's two different things that drive the business, so I thought. I think there was technology drives the business. This is the PEM fuel cells, solid oxide fuel cells, PV, sustainability, all that kind of stuff actually drives the business. And then there's the business side, which it was always like, well, Tony, that's great. Can you deliver on time? Can you manage the capacity? Can you get the white space when we need it? And I always thought, technology drove the business. And then I was always been my focus, my conversations, like we need more grids and, blah, blah, blah. But in reality, the business drives everything. And so a great example of this is, and I know I'm going to offend some people here, it's immersion cooling. I get it. I get the use case. But the business doesn't care right now. Do you think Google's buying up, megabits and megawatts and megawatts of immersion cooling? No. When the business needs it, they will do it. Technology does not drive the business. And that is a huge learning experience for me being on this side of the business where I probably am 5 or 6 months behind because I was like shiny object, technology. And I never really got, the business drives it. And it's been a tough lesson to learn.
So I want to get back to the part where you tell us how and when you learned that lesson, because this industry is really heavy in pushing ideas forward ahead of the curve, right? Like, hey, the whole industry is going to be modular in the next 5 years. And I remember hearing that 15 years ago, right? And we're not quite there yet, but there has been incremental improvement or growth or productivity, getting that to be more mainstream. And people are wrapping their minds around the adoption rate of that product from a transparent, predictable delivery model, right? Because everybody is working not on what the output is, but they're trying to figure out, how do I prove that I can create this thing to meet the massive demand of compute that we have now in this space?
The problem is, I agree with you to a certain extent, but look at me. I'm a consumer. Do I invest in $100 million of Enchanted Rock diesels when I don't know if anyone's going to buy it? No. And so you get into this weird dilemma of, as a consumer, I look to the data center provider and say, well, what technology do you have out there that could make it better? But, by the way, I still want wholesale costs. So please still keep it at $60 to $70 per kilowatt, and I want all this extra stuff. But as a provider, you're not willing to do that R&D aspect of it because you don't know if someone's going to buy that kind of stuff. So it's almost like this, everyone's just staring at each other. And I think companies like, Azure is a great example where, Christian and Oz are investing in that kind of technology, but they're investing in it and they're going to build it do you think Vantage is going to go out there or,
operators
are not going to invest in that kind of stuff until they have go build me a data center that has a PV and a BESS and all that kind of stuff. Then they'll build it for you. But you get in this weird kind of dilemma of and this is what it is. The business drives it. It's like, it's not the technology that drives it.
But what drives it is the question, because it's not that it's the most economically efficient solution. But if you get to a magnitude like a hyperscaler or a group that operates like a hyperscaler, there's almost like a business moral thing that they're like, look, if we're doing X, we should be leading by, using more, adopting more advanced technologies on the MEP side that may not pencil out the best, but at least it shows that we're doing our part as responsible stewards of industry, right? So I think that's the why in some cases, not because it's the best solution, the cheapest solution, the fastest solution. It's because it's if green means green and not money green, then let's do the right thing.
No, I agree with you, but the business has got to come to the technology people and say that. The technology people can go to the business people and sit there and say, I have a sustainable solution that's going to decrease our carbon footprint by X, Y, or Z. If it's not in the business roadmap, they're not going to care about it.
So I've had the opportunity to talk to you, but why don't you introduce yourself so
Oh,
people
sorry,
that are
sorry.
listening?
Yeah,
No,
so
there's no sorry.
yeah, Tony Grayson, very different path to tech. Spent 21 years in the military. My total life dream was to command my own submarine, which I did.
Nice.
Problem with that was I spent 4 years, or of those 4 years on command, I was spent about 90% of my time at sea.
That's good.
And yeah, it was good, but I want to spend more time with my family. I spent, all the times I didn't have
When you were a
my kid.
kid wanting to be a captain, you weren't thinking about being in the
I
corporate.
I agree with that, and there's a great podcast that I did with the Nomad Futurist about how my kid dealt with that kind of stuff, and it's still something I regret. I didn't spend all that time with him, help them grow up, and I really wanted to get out and spend more time with them, and it was really tough because I got that Stockdale award right at the end of my command tour, and it's like, wow, I felt like I actually did it, and here I'm leaving all this stuff behind to go into industry, which I didn't know if I'd be successful at, but I felt like I wanted to do it for my family, so. Then spent 2 years at Facebook, roughly. Loved it. Would still be there. The problem at that time, though, you had to be in Menlo Park. So, it
And
was,
you're from, where do you live again?
I live in Seattle right now, but I was from DC. But for me, it was I couldn't compete with the salaries of software engineers getting
Sure.
$2 million. The Navy gives you like $1, and your pension is like food stamps. It's like you cannot compete unless you're going to go way outside to the east side of the bay and drive in for 3 hours, and then you could live in that kind of area as military. So I moved up to Seattle, was flying the Nerdbird home down for 6 months, and so the Nerdbird it's an airline where you fly down on Monday, you fly back on Thursday
Sure.
or Friday. It's almost assigned seats. You sit next to your favorite
Yeah,
friend.
you see him every week.
You see him
I've
every
done
week,
it.
kind of stuff.
Everyone's executive platinum. There's
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. And so, but then in the end, that's kind of why I left the military. So then I spent time at AWS. And then at Oracle, I had a chance to run their network and then took over the corporate network and then all their data center strategy. But about a year ago, I started talking to, Brian Cox, Robin Kunda, Chris Crosby. I saw Green Mountain, Digiplex sales, and I was like, man, I can do this kind of stuff, but I'm a total technology and ops person. So, my total focus is technology and ops. Marketing, I think I know how to do it, but I don't. My financing, my budget, I'm a cost center. So my financing is just write a check for it. And then, in sales, definitely know how to do that. And so Chris Crosby offered me an opportunity to kind of come in and run a line of business. So an LLC under him. So it's kind of a startup, but it's more of a incubator where
Sure.
I can do the startup, but I don't have to go find my own money. I
Yeah.
can use Compass as support or all this kind of stuff. And so that's kind of how we ended up here.
It's a Nirvana situation.
Oh,
You have an established brand that has a lot. I mean, people know who Compass is. They
Yeah.
certainly know who Chris is, right? He was one of the OGs, still kind of is, right? And that product that you guys create, there's more pent up demand than there is available product for it, probably. It's just trying to figure out how to position it maybe in the market or create that narrative around it that people make it easy to discover.
Yeah, and I think it's we're trying to do something super different where Compass is total hyperscale platform. We're going to sell to the clouds. We're going to sell to the platform business, and that makes sense. But what I'm trying to do is really kind of modular solutions anywhere. So if you need, at a podcast, if you need some HPC racks in the back of this place, we can actually deliver that kind of stuff. Take care of all the permitting, land, the module.
Look, I want to scratch the paint hard on that, so I'm gonna because we're in no rush. We bought plenty of beers. I got enough for you to actually, because you were an officer, I was enlisted.
Yeah.
So how many beers do you have to have until you get jazz hands?
I think I could do jazz hands now if you
Right
want.
now?
Yeah.
So listen, how did you? Let's back up because you're from DC.
Yep.
Or outside Maryland, DC.
Right. Right outside Northwest DC.
Your family, former military as well?
My dad was Air Force. My grandfather was Navy, and he's the one who got me in. So he flew the Black Cats at Pearl Harbor when Pearl Harbor was attacked. Flew that big patrol plane, Batcat Raiders. All in the straits of kind of all going through the World War II, doing bombing, but then was shot down.
Your grandfather was shot down.
Yeah, spent 15 days or 16 days on a raft, never was the same. So this is PTSD before there was PTSD.
For sure.
But he always used to tell me these stories about service before self and, kind of what he did with that, that kind of the great generation. But so I wanted to go to the military, but what I really wanted to do was I didn't want to have anyone tell me what to do. So, the problem, aviation, you're flying an hour mission. They're on comms with you, know exactly what you're doing. Surface ships, your boss is probably right next door in a carrier, telling you exactly what to do. The only command out there that was kind of where you could still be that alone and unafraid is submarines. And so I was like, wow, that sounds pretty cool. Where I submerge, if I make it to CO, 38 years old, making kind of huge decisions on submarines, on kind of what we're doing. If I'm front page, if I succeed, no one knows what I did. If I fail, I'm front page news of every news outlet.
So you became a skipper at 38?
No, about 38. I think it was. Yeah.
So so to put it into context for our friends from the civilian fleet, that's how much does a submarine cost?
I think $3 or $4 billion, something like that.
So you're not even 40, and you're in charge of a $3 or $4 billion platform that has a lot of advanced weapons and technology on it, right?
On a mission that's approved by the president, the president gets briefed on, that you communicate when you come back to the president. There's only 50 of them or so. And so I love that kind of stuff. It's just,
it's awesome.
You really are alone and afraid going out there, and you're making weird decisions like, some of the stuff I can't talk about here, but it's just like, holy shit, I can't believe that just happened. Whether it's in the middle of an exercise, you never knew what was going to happen, whether someone might come a little closer than you and you wanted to or you expected, or, you're doing stuff with SEALs that it's just, holy hell.
So take it back. So you went from high school in Virginia or Maryland
High school, Virginia, to Naval Academy.
What year did you graduate from the academy?
96.
So 96. Okay. And then, no kidding. So I have a brother that graduated West Point in 96.
I'm sorry.
So you guys.
That's a poor choice.
Well, didn't you lose all 4 years?
We did.
Yeah. So he reminds me every time.
It was still fun. It was still fun.
So I bet you I went to one of those games that you were at. I probably was.
It was always how do you hire a kicker who goes to the 20-yard line and misses it wide right? Wide left. It was just like, seriously,
Sure.
You could pick anyone in the stands. Get out there, just give them something, and bet they could kick a better field goal than we ever could.
That's crazy. So I have a brother that graduated from an academy in 96, but again, he was at West Point. But I have gone to plenty of those games when he was there, so I'm sure I was at games you were at. But when you went to the academy, was that the only school you were looking at? Did you know you wanted to be in the Navy?
I was looking at MIT, UVA, ROTC, all this kind of other stuff, but I really wanted to go and where I felt like I had the best chance to launch in the Navy, because I wanted to be the CNO, I wanted to command my own submarine.
No kidding.
So
was it a fast attack, or do you want to be like?
No, I want to be fast attack. I want to do all the stuff that I saw in the movies. I should be honest. I saw a Top Gun, I wanted to fly, and then they're like, your eyes suck, you can't do lasers to get it fixed. I'm like, I want to do submarines.
Sure.
So but I'm happy everything worked out the way it did. But I wanted to go in there, I want to make a life out of it, and go do that kind of stuff, because was
it hard to get in the Naval Academy?
It was. The Naval Academy is interesting, where you have to be vetted by a blue and gold officer, then you have to make the admissions, then you have to get some kind of congressman, nomination to go through all that kind of stuff. Then you just have to last. It's just like, you're talking to your friends from high school, they're out partying, enjoying themselves, and you're like getting screamed at, doing 100 push-ups for no damn good reason, or doing parades when it's just asinine.
What was your favorite part about being in school at the Naval Academy?
I think at the Naval Academy, it's just you really got to do a lot of cool stuff. You always had access to good research. You had very good access to very good professors. You had cool summers. I think, I spent 3 summers on submarines. So
Did you really? Every midshipman summer
I was forced through the Marine thing, which was like, seriously, I'm like...
What do you do? What did they make you do? They go Camp Pelton,
they send to Quantico. So you do like 2 weeks of basic and a week at OCS. It's like, seriously, guys, I'm going submarines. They're like, what are you going to do? I'm like, I'm going to sit on my ass and push a button. I'm not going to navigate by the stars. I think it's cool. I think it's awesome. Not my thing.
So what did you study at school? Were you obviously
control systems?
So when you graduated, did you go right to power school?
Actually, I spent time at a ComNav Telcom, so the head of the communications of the Navy in D.C. My girlfriend at the time, but then my wife was at American, so it was right across the street. So I was there for 6 months, and then I spent 6 months down in Orlando, and then 6 months up in Charleston.
Is that where you went to prototype?
That's where I went to prototype, yeah.
And then from there, did you pick fast attacks, or did you?
No, I actually picked boomer.
Is that what you went to?
I actually expected to get out.
Really?
Yep. So I was gonna boomer. I was gonna get out and go to get my MBA.
So hold on. So you were going to get out because you were on a boomer?
No, I was just going to get out because I was married then at that time, and I wanted to focus on just getting out and
What
and
was your father career Air Force?
he was career Air Force, but he was contracting. So
Okay. So originally you went in because you wanted to be the CNO and be the
and
skipper, and then you get to your first boat, it's a boomer,
and I
you're
went.
like, I want to.
No, but I chose that. I think what I went in for when I got out was something different. So
So those people that are listening, like, I don't know what a boomer life is like, but walk people through. I mean, Gold Crew, Blue Crew.
no, so it's Gold Crew, Blue Crew. So two crews, you go out, you submerge for 90, 120 days. And at that time, you got, I think, 6 family grams. So family grams, 50 words or less.
Because that wasn't even like, there wasn't even really email kicking.
No, there's no goodness. No, there was no email. These family grams, and you just go out, you submerged, and came up 3 or 4 months later.
Were we out at Kings Bay or?
No, Bangor.
Okay, so you end up being stationed on the Pacific Fleet the whole time?
Pacific Fleet.
No,
actually, I spent two tours Pacific Fleet. So my XO, my JO tour, and then 2 tours in the Atlantic, which was my department head, my CO tour.
Well, walk me through. So you come out of Charleston, you get done with prototype, you go to your first boat in Bangor.
Bangor.
And how long were you on that boat? Which boat was it?
It was USS Nevada Gold Crew.
Nevada Gold.
Yep.
Okay.
So, I think I realized that I kind of like this kind of stuff.
Is that boat still running?
That's a good question. I think so.
Okay.
Yeah. But I kind of realized there I kind of liked what I was doing. So great crew, great CO, had a lot of fun there. We shot a ballistic, we shot a boom, we did one of the testing where they basically loaded a live round on you, and you go through the Panama Canal. That's my first tour. Go through the Panama Canal and go out to Pecan. You sit for 2 weeks in Pecan.
Sure.
You shoot up. This is great. Panama Canal, awesome. Port Canaveral, awesome. Go shoot a missile, awesome. And learn all that kind of stuff.
Because I did that undersea weapons range out there too, right? And then we pulled into. I turned 21 at sea, so we pulled into Pecan and didn't even make it off the pier. I mean, to the end of the pier, and then the first beer you could find. The bar actually has like when you walk in and you don't have your warfare pin yet, but you're going to drink your fish. They actually have those pictures that have they super glued your dolphins on the bottom of like you have to drink until the fish come up.
Yeah.
But so you did that, and what were you then? You were a division officer.
That was just a GO. So I was, started off as a CRA and MPA, and then it ended up being the AWEPS when I left.
Okay. And then where'd you go when you left?
I left. I went down to be a Marine Corps aide, or I was an aide to a Marine Corps general, a 1-star, then a 2-star at Southcom.
Where's that at?
Miami.
And your guys' detailer, that's what you didn't want to go to sea, I guess?
No, I just wanted to try being an aide.
Okay.
So that's kind of how it worked.
Kind of have to check that box, I guess, at some point.
Yeah, I kind of had to check that box, and I thought, Miami, that sounds interesting. We just had 1 kid, and Miami sounds fun.
How long's that type of tour?
That was 2 years.
So you're at sea for what, 3 probably, and then you do 2 there?
2 years, yep. And then I went up to Connecticut and was WEPS on USS Connecticut.
Okay, so that's Groton. That's where I was.
Yeah.
The Memphis. I was on the Memphis, so we were right there next to you.
Oh, yeah.
Now, was the Connecticut one of those like Seawolf class?
Yep, Seawolf class, number 2.
Okay.
Yep. So it was always robbing parts from each other.
Sure.
No one knew how they worked. They always wanted, as WEPs, they always wanted 4 torpedo teams going at once. All silliness.
Okay.
Because you could carry, you had the...
Were you the WEPs?
I was the WEPs.
Was that a cool job?
I did. That's exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to go, I want to be an engine, I want to be a nav, I want to be a WEPs. But in the end, that was just, in retrospect, that was where, and I don't want to offend anyone here, but that's where they set the dumb people. So it was always like, well, what's your nuclear rating? We'll send you to be a WEPs.
Remember, I was telling you that I only saw one bad officer the whole time I was in, and he was the WEPs.
Okay.
And he got sacked.
Okay.
So what about, did you go on med runs, or you guys do any ice runs?
We did a Middle East run.
Okay, so you're in the med?
Yep, in the med.
And then when you came off that boat, what did you do?
I came off that boat and I went to be a detailer.
Oh, really? Where's that, in Tennessee?
Memphis. Yep.
Okay.
So that was the post-department head detailer. So I was assigned, this was times of IA, so individual augmentation, so I had to send people to Iraq. And we also sent, the department heads out to the sea tours.
What are the options that those guys can have to augment sea time on a submarine, but still stay really closely aligned to that community so they don't get passed over, I guess, to get to their...
I mean, you mean like what jobs are the best for those posts?
Yeah, like is there a roadmap that people lay out and be
No,
like,
I think it's if you're doing anything operational and you can try to make your mark and make a difference, I think those are the best ones. I think a lot of them filled in like just staff operations jobs and we're just like watch officers.
does the social dynamic of the people like we are in this industry
Oh my goodness. So it is hugely, you know, it is, you want to call someone who can get you that boat that you want or can vouch for you, or you go to Trouble Boat and all that kind of stuff. It is very much it's definitely what you do, but it's also, because I ran all the boards too for the submarines, and it was always about, how well people knew you and stood up for you.
I got you. So when you came off that, where you were a department head, you were the WEPs. Next tour is a XO tour?
No,
or?
so it was the detailer, and then that next tour was went to a GN out of Groton, or
What's
sorry,
that?
Bangor, a GN. Got a missile submarine, so Ohio.
Oh, one of those.
Yep. So Ohio was converted to a 126 Tomahawks and 2 SEAL delivery vehicles.
I was like, they had SDRVs or whatever.
Yep, SDV or SEAL delivery vehicles.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All right, I
SDVs.
got you.
Yep.
Was the Parchie one of those boats?
No, Parchie was previous, but I'm not sure if they carried SEALs, but Jimmy Carter replaced the Parchie.
Carter,
So,
okay.
yeah, Parchie did all the special ops stuff, and Jimmy Carter was like a sea
You ever read that book, Blind Man's Bluff?
Oh, yeah.
Remember Admiral Graff?
Yeah.
His son was my department head for a while, Scott Graff. He was a stud, still is, obviously. But
No, and it always makes me laugh, and I do have this conversation quite a bit in our industry. I'm always like, well, subsea cables, huh? Like, well, we can always tell when you're messing with them. Like, can you really tell?
Yeah.
Well, we have shunting, electrical, and current, and blah, blah, blah. Like,
somehow.
there's our moon pool on a submarine, and, the Russians launched a Pultus an awful lot, and we do the same with Jimmy Carter. Yeah, I think we probably can mess with them.
So you went to one of those boats and it was back in Bangor?
Back in Bangor, yep.
How often was that boat deployed?
We before deployed at Guam.
Okay.
So most of the time we flew to Guam and deployed at Guam.
Okay, so that still had like a blue and a gold crew?
Blue and gold crew, 100, high op tempo, going out and doing missions in the Pacific.
But you, from there, where'd you go?
I went to actually Bahrain. I was the EA to Fifth Fleet, and ComNav sent. At first it was Mark Fox, Mert, and then it was Fozzie Miller. So F-18 pilot and F-14 Rio.
Gotcha.
So it was great. I mean, I wouldn't trade that tour for the world. My whole family lived in 3 years in Bahrain before the Arab Spring. So they got to witness all of that, and they got to have this real interesting relationship where everyone is afraid of the Middle East. My kids got to live there, have very, super interesting friends, got to see super interesting things, got to meet, the Crown Prince, got to go to these kind of things. For me, got to brief Secretary of State, met all, flew all those Middle East countries with the boss and had some super interesting meetings. And that's how I kind of met, Colonel General Mattis too.
Oh, really?
Yes, this was.
What rank was he then?
He was CENTCOM at the time.
Okay.
Yep.
And then how was he?
He was awesome. So he was he's the kind of guy that was like, he donated an AK-47 to CENTCOM. It's like, Tony, let me take this apart for you, show you how to, if you ever have to use it, how you can still use it and it's still working order, even though it's on a plaque.
This is Mad Dog Mattis.
This is Mad Dog Mattis. Or even when you go into a meeting with him, when you're in Qatar for some kind of meeting, and he'd be like, you come with your boss because you're the EA, you kind of sit there to take the notes and everything. And so I was like, Admiral, I get it. Let's talk to Tony. Tony, how you doing? And it was just amazing, that kind of, I've never had, like, it just makes all those stories about, kind of him kicking when he's a general, like, 2 MAV kicking the duty officer out saying, hey, I got Christmas duty.
I heard he stood watch for gate duty before.
Exactly. It was awesome. That kind of, it was just super interesting hearing from him and what he did and what could make you learn.
I had when you're doing workups, we had I don't know if it was a tree or an oars, and we had one of my first times meeting a 1-star that was sitting on the boat with us, and he sat right behind me and was just shooting the shit with me the whole time. And now he made everybody in the wardroom, nervous as shit, I guess. But for us, he would just talk to us like a regular person, and he'd have regular conversations and ask us about every day on the boat. And, what did we like about being in the Navy? He like genuinely was investing into the fleet. It seemed like at that point, I found that like those guys were very unassumingly cordial and welcoming. You know, they were looking to really cultivate and grow the fleet.
You know, and I think that's kind of what the Navy needs more. You know, if I look back at the way I acted or the way I was a CEO, that the Navy needs more of that.
So
I think, you know, kind of, you know, you're only as good as the last horse or stuff like that was just kind of, it forces you into a different dynamic when in reality we should all be like that admiral that you talked about.
yeah, I mean, like I had good captains. I had great captains that they definitely had the ability to exercise a voice when necessary. I never, like, getting yelled at was never a problem for me,
Yeah.
right? So I understood, for me, it was just a way for them to express the passion they had and whatever the message
Yep.
was, and I never took it as an attack. But I was also born and raised in a military family where my father was a
Yeah.
Mustang, right? And I kind of learned to get comfortable with the way that some of those people were always functioning, you know, to where I understood what they were trying to get accomplished, and maybe I didn't have this, you know, I wasn't viewing it through the same optics as them, but
Yeah.
they would have their way of educating me in how I should be viewing things, and sometimes it would be assertive. So I was lucky.
And it wasn't that. It was just, you know, are you trying to do this because you want a good grade, or are you trying to do this because you actually want the boat to be successful and everyone comes from the boat? And I think that's a hard decision.
Well, you said that one of the things that you had was the goal to just, I mean, you want to be a captain. And
Yep.
and what I found was the guys that I worked for, they just wanted to be a captain. Anything past that was like a bonus to them. So they weren't political.
Yeah.
You know, they were diplomatic, but they weren't using us as the stepping stone to their star or something like that, right?
You know,
They-
and that's what also I wanted was to be a captain in the end. You know, I when I went in, I really want to be a CNO or whatever, but in the end, it was just be a successful captain and walk away from it when you could.
What's successful though? Is it like your crew?
I think it, for
missions?
me, if I look back, it was all the chiefs that I want to get selected got selected. It was all the people got promoted. You know, all my department heads went on to be XOs. All my XOs went on to be
Oh, really?
COs. All my JOs who stayed in became XOs. That to me was success.
Is that how they measure you guys?
No, that's not at all how they measure you. They measure you by your, you know, how well you did on Palm Cert, how well you did all these certifications and kind of evaluations.
Administratively, they're measuring.
Administrative, yeah, but how well you train your crew and all that kind of stuff. I think in the end, you know, looking back, you know, I'm 7 years removed now. I measure myself by how well the people that I, you know, commanded or served with were successful.
So, so you went from the what was it, Ohio? What was the boat?
Ohio to Bahrain to Providence, which was my command tour.
So you didn't have to do an EXO tour?
No, the EXO tour was the Ohio.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yep,
Okay.
yep.
What's it like being an EXO?
It's, man.
Because you have to be like, that's like the bad cop, right?
Well, I think there's two kinds of XOs. There's the XO that's the engineer prior served that knows all the engineering stuff, and then there was me. It was the operations technology person, where the CO was the, you know, CO was the engineer person. But I think you have to get into the details and keep all the plates spinning. And that's where you kind of learn how to really delegate. Because I think up to that point, you and Rowdy can micromanage the hell out of everything. But as an XO, you just can't do it. And so you actually have to, that's when you first get your leadership test of how do you delegate and how do you follow through and how to keep all the plates spinning.
So who's in your corner the most? Was it like you had to have the cob in your corner the whole time?
Oh my goodness. You had to have the cob, you had to have cheese quarters first, definitely. And that's how you got through to the JOs. And you also have to have the department heads in your tour. And of course, you presented to the CO, like, this is the way we're going to go forward and how we plan to do it. And he either said yes or gave you direction, you know, based on his feedback. But remember, when I was XO, the CO was the second tour CO.
Oh, really?
Yep. So those GNs were all major commands. So they were all second tour COs.
That's pretty special then, right?
Yep. Yep.
So those captains are probably top of the top.
No, they're top of the top, and they've been there and done that before. So it made it super easy to learn, and they're all four captains, so you didn't have this weird dynamic of. So in equivalency, the Commodore is the same rank and level as the CO of the GN. So
Sure.
you didn't have this weird kind of hierarchy piece when you're talking about things. I mean, there definitely was a hierarchy still where you still listen to the operation commander, but I think there's a little bit more back and forth that you could do.
Of those boats, which one was like the coolest deployments you went on?
I think, the Ohio was probably the coolest because we do a lot of SEAL ops and a lot of cool missions. And and that kind of stuff. But I think even Connecticut did some cool stuff too. So, and I could say Providence too. So, back my CO
So
tour.
the Providence is when you became the skipper.
Providence
And they're
was
out
our
of Groton
skipper.
as well.
They're out
right?
of Groton. Yep.
So did you retire out of Groton?
I retired at Groton.
Okay, so how long were you back in Groton?
I was back in Groton for 6 months before I left the Navy and went to go work for Facebook.
So how long was the CO tour?
I guess my CO tour was 3.5 years.
So at the end of 3.5, you had the option to
You go to your waterfront tour, and then go do your shore tour, then go become your major command tour, which is go be a Commodore or something like that.
and you were like, because that's kind of short duty, right? I mean,
Now it's kind of short duty, but at that time I'd spent so much time out at sea. I kind of achieved my lifelong goal, and I just basically said, hey, let me go try out in this real world kind of thing. It was tough because I had a tough conversations with the CNO and those people trying to get me to stay in, but in the end you got to do what's right for yourself and the family.
so to that end, right, being born and raised in a military family, my dad was a B-52 bomber guy. And it was interesting. I mean, the Revolution shirt, you knew what it meant immediately when you saw it, but it's we did this shirt because it's the symbol of Strategic Air Command,
Yep.
the SAC. And my dad was in the SAC, right? I lived in Minot, North Dakota for 5 years. And I'll tell you, like, those guys, they were on alert every other week.
It's a great movie. You ever see it? It's an old 50s movie, The Strategic Air Command.
I haven't seen it, I guess.
All black and white.
Oh, really?
It
I'll
was
watch
the
it.
predecessor from pre-B-52 in the movie. They're on the B-52. Yep.
Yep.
It's a Strategic Air Command. So they took, they Hollywoodized that whole community. It's a great.
I didn't even know they
Yep,
made movies about
it's
Air Force.
It is a total Hollywood thing about recruiting. So it's like the Top Gun of
the 50s.
the 50s and early 60s on kind of Strategic Air Command. But it's a great movie. I absolutely love it.
That's unfortunate. I enjoy telling my dad and my brother about how they don't even make movies about the Air Force.
No, they definitely do. They haven't made one since the 60s. Oh, at fact, Iron Eagle. Also,
Oh, yeah.
breaking up, yeah, Chappie, breaking out the Air Force movie, recruit movie. But it's funny, we have in the Navy, we have Top Gun and Maverick now, total Hoo-Yah movies. But then Army has, Hamburger Hill, Platoon,
Oh, they have a million.
Apocalypse Now,
Black Hawk
all-
Down, yeah.
Black Hawk Down,
Outpost,
all not inspiring movies to go join.
yeah. Oh, I know. We were soldiers. I remember reading that book once. I remember reading that book while deployed, and I was like, thank God I'm on a submarine. But there's actually a reference in that movie where the first sergeant is like, they're in a foxhole at night and shooting, and he leans over to Mel Gibson. And he's like, kind of makes you wish you joined submarines, right? And I was like,
Oh my goodness. And it's it's just like when you actually sit on board like a Virginia class and they're sitting on their seat, they're sitting on their butt, and they have that little Xbox joystick and they're doing all the periscope stuff. I'm like, back in my day,
yeah.
I spun around the periscope. And I had seen it for 4 hours, but it's nothing like sitting in a foxhole.
Oh man, so I have a bunch of our primary brand is Overwatch, and we have a lot of former military, and many on my leadership team are former infantry, and they have stories that I don't even bother telling sea stories because
You can't compete, and it's just a totally different background, totally different lifestyle, and
yeah.
God bless them.
as I complain about being seasick, and they're like, "Yeah, did anybody shoot you that day? You're all right then." Suck it."
Exactly. Your bad day was the coffee.
We ran out of.
We ran out of cookie dough ice cream.
I know what
Go
happened.
back
here?
into port and get more
This
cookie
is
dough ice cream.
outrageous. I told you that the other time I ever saw someone get reprimanded by the captain on the ship was when the chop ran out of beef, and we had chicken for like 20 straight days as a meal. And I remember the captain's like, "You don't feed my crew nothing but chicken. You're out." But so what was your favorite boat? Was it as the captain?
I would say as the captain, just because that's the boat you make it. You take what you have and you turn it around and you make it, a successful boat. And that's the one I felt like I make the most mark on from the crew wise and, when you left it,
I enjoyed growing up. I don't ever feel sorry for myself. When I first got in this industry, I would be gone Monday and come home on Friday all the time. And I remember one time having a little pity party for myself. I was at Eaton, I think at the time I was a PM, and I had hired one of my chiefs to come in, and I was you know how it is. You just like, oh my God, I'm missing this, I'm missing that. And he's like, Kirk, you do realize that half our friends are still deployed for 6 to 8 months at a click. You're home at least on the weekends. You get
Yep.
to watch the ball games, and you know, that changed the way I viewed a lot of things. And you know, you were talking about like, hey, I want to be home. I want to be around my family more, around my kids. And I think everybody wants that. But at the same time, there was a lot of value in not having my old man there, because it forced me to have to think for myself, right? And the benefit of growing up, moving from base to base every few years was you get closer with your family because they're the only ones that you always could depend on to be friends with you every time you moved. But the other part was you didn't really plug yourself into like the neighborhood narrative. So you were able to come to your own conclusion on things.
You know, I think my kids have, you know, they'll sit there and tell you they hated moving around a lot, but they've been able to adapt well at college because of that. Whether
Acclimation,
it's the acclimation, you know, ability to find friends, to you know, figure out what fits, what doesn't fit really quickly, to be able to succeed on your own and be fine on your own. I think
You had to think for yourself.
Exactly.
You'd show up to, I mean, you'd go into North Dakota where you have no idea what's up, and the next thing you know, I'm in Washington for 5 years or something, and it's a whole new culture. Right?
You know what, but I still regret it though, because I think my eldest was in 3 high schools.
I was the only one in my family. I'm the youngest, so I was the only one that got to go to one. But yeah, I could empathize. I went to multiple. I probably went to 4 or 5 elementary schools, a couple middle schools, but I went to one high school. My brothers all had to go to, you know, multiple high schools, but it didn't hurt us. I mean, they're all doing very well. I do think that there was an advantage to that as well.
I would agree with that.
You could look at it one way or the other, but when you left, you knew, you know, like you have to, at some point we all know when the party's over. For me, it was just one tour.
Yeah.
I didn't get out because I didn't like it. I got out because I had other goals and things that I wanted to get accomplished. So I just kept on trucking. But how did you find yourself into Facebook? Because I know that Furlong loves Submariners.
No, Furlong loved Submariners, and it made a super easy transition. And so I was originally supposed to go run, you know, the facilities out of Dublin. We've been trying to go overseas forever, and you know, was we had a chance to go to Perth, turned that down, went to Bahrain instead. So
as a civilian, went back to Bahrain?
No, we were supposed to go to overseas, but it ended up going just based on my background. I got picked up by a different team and so I had to be in Menlo Park, and so doing kind of more infrastructure. You know, ISP, OSP.
But how did you, when you got out, if you retired from New London, Connecticut, what made you go to Seattle to work for Facebook?
No, I went to Menlo Park.
Oh, you did?
I was in California for 1.5 years.
Okay. And then did you send your family up north?
Nope. Family was there too.
Okay. And then at some point you're like, this is untenable.
No, it was just too expensive. We couldn't afford, you know, it was like at that time it was cash offers. It was 10 offers at our home.
Sure.
We couldn't afford it. We'd have to go, you know, way East Bay to be able to afford anything. And it's not, you know, as much how awesome those Facebook buses were, going on a 2.5 hour bus ride to go in for a 2.5 bus ride to go back, it's just not worth it.
It's a beat down. Yep.
Exactly. It's just not worth it.
I remember I too took a job in Silicon Valley. I lived in Los Gatos when I got out, and I rented a 1,058 square feet house, no backyard, no garage. It had no heat. No, I'm sorry. It had no AC, but it had heat. And I paid $3,500 a month in rent. That was a long time ago. And I remember going to go look at a house, and I gave the realtor like a range, you know, and I was like, show me something for $500,000. And, you know, they're like, show me homes that had bars on the windows. And they're like, look, you can't park your car out front. It's going to get jacked. And I just remember thinking, I'm like, I can't live here.
That's exactly what we just couldn't afford it. And so it was just, you know, instead of putting a family through all that stress of trying to find a home, or, you know, now they're, you know, the good thing about Facebook, they actually moved, the IDC moved to the East Bay. So it makes it much easier to live out there. It was just, you know, you had to find another way to do it. And so that's why they moved the whole family up to Seattle. Started finding the Nerd down.
So what made you pick Seattle though?
Just 2 times I've been there. So during my Joe tour, my XO tour.
Oh, from Bangor.
Yep. And we just like the area.
It's a beautiful area.
It is.
And then, and you live there still?
Still live there.
What would get you to move from there?
You know, I think it's getting the last kid out of school, and we've been dying hard to move overseas. To go to
Anywhere
Europe.
in particular?
Yeah, just over, you know, in the continent, you know, whether it's
really?
Yep, we've been trying very hard to move over there.
Do you have a preference of where you go?
No, I think Luxembourg, Italy, France, Germany, you name it, all sounds awesome. London, England, all sounds awesome. It's just it's just something different. We've always been moving every couple of years, and now it's like I've been living in Seattle for, I guess, 5 years now, and it's like it's time to go.
So how long ago have you been removed?
I got out in 2016. So I
So
guess
in
6 years.
2001, what were you doing? September 11th.
September 11th, I was actually in Miami at Southcom. I was the aide. Yep.
So you got to see everything kind
Yep.
of
Got to see everything down as a strategic command for all Latin America and the Caribbean, and seeing what that was. And that at the time was General Pace, and all the meetings that we did, and all the force protection moves we did when we didn't really know what was going on.
Was that cool?
It was cool. Not necessarily cool, but it was interesting to see, General Pace in action, and it was behind the scenes phone calls of, calling up Joint Chiefs and being a part of that whole process post 9/11, and how we strengthened the force protection and just be like the fly on the wall for all that kind of stuff.
Interesting. But but
that was also around the time too where, where I still remember this was 2 weeks after 9/11. We're at an operations presentation for General Pace, and all of a sudden Rick Ashley comes on.
Who's that?
Rick Ashley,
Mm-mm.
blonde, red hair, never gonna pick you up.
Oh
No.
my God.
So they some awesome JO thought he would rickroll the.
That's awesome.
In retrospect, it's awesome, but it was like, what's going on here? We've been hacked by the
That's
Chinese or the
savage.
Russians or the
That's
Iranians
savage.
or the Iraqis. And I'm like going, sir, it's a rickroll. You just got to, everyone's freaking out, cybersecurity. And it's just like this one little, I felt so bad from like 20-year-old kid's like, sorry, sir, I just thought I would liven the mood.
Please tell me that guy's on his way to be an admiral.
I have no clue whatever happened to that. I've never felt so bad for a kid in my entire life. Just been like,
He probably, my guess is that kid probably, went to the Naval Academy and spent his whole life preparing for like this amazing epic whatever. and then
yeah,
all of a
I'm
sudden,
going
one
to present.
fun
I'm going to
joke.
present the General Pace and all this stuff, and I rickroll them. Yeah.
Ooh, you know what? That's gangster stuff, though. I could respect that. All right, but so when you got out, did you interview with a lot of other companies, or did you just go?
No,
how did you end up at Facebook?
I think it was just Facebook because it was a great. It's just Facebook. They pay well, great opportunities. They had huge
Furlong.
veteran presence.
Yeah.
Great protection, teach you a lot of stuff. The only bad thing was moving to California. So that's kind of it made it.
How did you get into the fold though? Because I know that he.
It's just the Stockdale.
Okay,
I mean, I wish I could say anything was anything else. It was the Stockdale stuff.
gotcha.
So that was what got me in the front door for Facebook.
And then you left and you went to, was it AWS?
AWS.
How long were you there for?
About a little less than a year.
Was Oz there then?
No, Oz had already left. And to be honest, I liked it, but it was just, I wanted to do a little bit more. And, Oracle offered me something a little bit different, because I was doing a lot of the same stuff I was doing at Facebook there. And I really wanted to.
More network? You're on the network side more?
No, I was on the operations side. So under Bo on there, but it was kind of the IT smart hands and then more of the design side. But I liked it, but in the end, I wanted to do something different. I mean, it was this whole, I've never done networking. I knew, the funny thing is a submarine has like 15 megawatts of IT load. So you kind of knew about the stuff, how everything worked together, but I thought I knew enough to actually get out there and try something different. So, Oracle's like, well, why don't you come run our production network for us? So I was like, well, that sounds cool.
What was the most significant thing you learned in the military, regardless of whatever, rank you were at or role you were in, that allowed you to successfully transition into that
To be
stuff?
honest, I don't think any of it helps us. I
Really?
think I think it's a deterrence, to be perfectly honest.
Tell me, help me understand. What
So
you mean.
I was super lucky at Facebook, and I where they were like, "Hey Tony, you think you know it, but you don't," and so we're not going to allow you to do anything for 4 or 5 months.
Is it
So-
the dialect that you have to learn?
No, I think it's we try to tell ourselves in the military that we are used to leading diverse cultures. We're not. We're all taught to think the same. We all come from different backgrounds, but boot camp, everyone else is for it. In the end, they can always sit there and say, Kirk, I got it. Do it anyway. I don't care what you think. And people lead on that a lot. So leadership's different. Finances are a joke. It's just like, I'm going to maintain a budget, but I'm still going to order $100,000
Overrun.
That's sort of, what are they going to say?
Because you have to. Yeah.
Because so there's no P&L. You're just a huge cost center. Operations are very rigid in the fact that everything kind of goes the same. I think the only thing that is interesting that kind of teaches you is like shipyard, all the stuff that you absolutely hated on whether it's, retrofits or decom or kind of that stuff, you actually learn the most. That's the most thing that's applicable. How do you manage multiple trades to do the job? And so, I think they did a very good job of not allowing me to make any decisions, because I would have said, yeah, I've seen this before, this is what we need to do, but yes, I've seen it before, but in a different environment with different people, and I would have drove a very different outcome.
What were you expecting when you left the service?
Well, I expected exactly what they told me was, I've been in management for 20 years. I know how to do this stuff. I've done operations. It's just totally different, and that's what I try to do when I talk to vets now, trying to make them understand you can't go in there and be arrogant about it and say you've done this before. I don't care what level you are. It's just totally different. And you have to come in with some kind of, curiosity with no ego, and understand, man, you got a lot to learn. And
how would you define your leadership style? Like if I didn't know you, but I ran into your XO or any of your department heads, what would they have said about your leadership or your management style?
I think
good or bad. I mean,
I think so. I'll be honest. I almost got fired as a CEO. So I think as micromanaging. So I took over a boat that was having problems, and I was there to fix it. And I thought, at that time I had enough bandwidth where I could, kind of order people what to do and make things happen and be very micromanaging. But that only gets you so far. And I think I kind of, when I had that oh shit moment, I kind of realized you have to change yourself to empower the team.
What was the oh shit moment? Was it?
It was the hey, you better fix this shit or you're gone. It can't get better than that.
I had a nuke master chief Cobb, who was the chief for my captain when he was a JO. So obviously that that JO became a captain, and that guy became a Cobb, and I knew that the captain, like, it wasn't as though the master chief was the burning bush, but it would take a lot to dissuade that captain from disagreeing with what that Cobb was saying. But I watched that Cobb even then still kind of groom that CO and help him become a better leader, just very subtly. He was very unassuming, very humble. I got to work. I mean, like I said, I had the privilege of working with amazing guys. Funny story, there was a guy that was our DCA. He failed me on my first board. So
Submarine Dolphins board, or?
Yeah. So I needed to be fired. I needed to fail, right? Oh, yeah. And it's because, like, I got to the ship and got all my needs met. I got everything done to E9. Like, I was a hot runner, so I was trying to always be number one in all those things. And I think I showed up just a little too arrogant for my board.
No, 100% agree. Same thing. I think you need to get punched in the face. You need to have a little grit. You got to realize where your place in the world actually is. And so
doing all your lookups in an EIB certainly will humble you, right?
Could have been an OBA. Slightly worse.
Yeah. But listen, I was flying through my quals, and I didn't have to really crank at all. I was staying in watch stations. I was earning, I remember this guy, though. He was always the officer of the deck, and I was always on watch with him during every major inspection, oars, trees, whatever. And he was as hardcore as they came. He was former enlisted, went to UT actually, got his degree, went in as a commission, and there was a standard that he had, right? And Mason Ward is his name. And
I know Mason.
You know Mason? He was one of the most exceptional officers I got to work for, because he simply was laser smart.
Yeah.
Like, just knew his shit in and out, and he could smell bullshit off anybody. Like, if you try to tap dance or regurgitate some sort of answer, but you really didn't know, he could figure that out. And I don't think that I ever really liked him, but I always respected him. I just didn't want to ever have to be on the other side of the table of him. And it was surprising to me because one day, maybe a year or two ago, I'm having sushi, someplace down the street from my house, and I'm walking through some guys like, oh, fell, and it's him. He comes up and, he was the coolest guy ever. But in my mind, I was like, when he was walking up to me, I'm like, is he going to punch me? Is he? Because he was such a ball busting.
No,
but that was his job. And listen, I'm thankful for it.
But I don't think we have to be that way. I think we're kind of taught that kind of, it's you only as good as the last horse. But I think that forces you to be a different leader than you want to be. And I think the people who are better at that, who kind of ignore that and able to deal with that pressure, are much better leaders on the submarine force.
So did you discover what kind of leader you were?
I think it was. I kind of discovered that it was. It's all about empowering your people and make them successful. But
does it who did you go to? Did you have a former CEO that you?
No, I
Commodore.
No, I definitely have plenty of former CEOs or Commodores or at that time when you're an XO, you had to go through CEO school, and same thing as your CEO. So I had a whole plethora of people to fall back on and ask them kind of questions, and they well, Tony, you're full of shit. You can't do that, or that's dumb, or that was the kind of stuff that you need to hear.
I think that when you sit in those series, you have to have someone that you can.
But I think you never listen to it until you get kicked. Once you get put on the ground, then you start listening.
I mean, I have a fairly strong stable of industry thought leaders that I get to lean on all the time. One of them was Chris. I remember one time something happened and I called him and I was all huffy puffy over something, and he literally started laughing at me. He's like, "Listen," and I just remember thinking that was one of those moments where you realize like you don't know shit.
No, similar conversation with Chris, which was, why you care? And I was like, well, and he goes, well, that sounds like ego. Why does that, does it matter in the whole scheme of things? So, is that your ego talking, or does that really matter? I was like, it was almost an epiphany. It's like,
yeah, it's true.
That was an ego talking.
But you need someone to pressure test you.
Exactly. No, 100% agree.
So I guess what I'm trying to say is when you left, because I do think that there's an advantage that veterans have.
100% agreed. I think the advantage that veterans have is, man, you get moved in jobs every 2 years. Your ability to quickly come up to speed, learn things, and knock it out of the park is what makes us awesome.
It's the cycle of reinventing yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Or the fact you're a generalist and you know a little about anything, and you can lend your experience onto anything. So you've seen it all, done it all. And I honestly think you learn by leading and failing. So you've been there, you've done that for 20-something years, or you've been that for 5 or 6 years. You can't learn in a book. And you can learn in a book, but you can't retain it and actually apply it. And so what we bring is our ability to reinvent yourself, learn new jobs. And we've been punched in the face for however long it was. And we have all these scars and lessons learned that makes us better leaders. And I think we as an industry don't realize that, and in which case we are so afraid to find that job that we take that job that is less, I'm not saying you're working at 7-Eleven, but it's close, or you just want any kind of job so you can do that when you're selling yourself short and when you can actually accomplish so much out there. And it might even be outside you and I are both in data centers with nothing to do with submarines. It's just, if you take that risk and you get out there, you can actually knock it out of the park. And I don't think we do that enough as an industry. We don't give them people that freedom to fail and get better at themselves to get inside that industry.
It's tough. It's a tough industry for that. But I agree that that knife cuts both ways, right? Because you do want to create an environment where people can reinvent themselves, which is only done through failure of some kind. And how do you do it in which you don't burden the customer or the business as a whole, unless the business is willing to invest into your growth, right? So I think as a veteran that's trying to always bring in as many veterans as I can, I try to talk to fellow veterans like yourself and ask, like, what did you learn most, either as an SME, because you do learn advanced weapons, machinery, technology when you're in the military, but it doesn't necessarily instantly transcend, but it does say, hey, look, I have the aptitude to learn, right? So if you want to teach me something else, if I could draw primary and secondary nuclear propulsion, I could probably draw a 4-bus distributed redundant one line on electrical prediction, which is, not to trivialize it, but it's not nearly as hard, right? And it's just, again, another function of acclimation where you're like, okay, so here I am. I have this ability to come in early, stay late, and volunteer for hard shit. That was the big thing when I left the military is talking to companies like, look, this is not 40 hours a week. This is going to be closer to 50, maybe in some weeks when it's hard, 60. And I'm like, I did 100 hours a week when I was in
No,
port.
exactly.
In port.
100% agree.
So I'm like, I could still pick my teeth with 60 hours a week, right?
But I still think people take advantage of us in the military because of that, though. They're like, they're going to prey on your fears. They know exactly how much you make, and they're going to offer you enough to entice you to bring you in. But still, I mean, they're not doing it you're not doing it for your benefit. They're doing it because they're.
Well, we all have to start from somewhere.
No, I agree with that. And I think, I think Overwatch does it well. And I think there's other companies that do that. But I think some people do prey upon that JO or that, whoever that chief who's afraid about getting out, and they'll pay them exactly what they need to do to get them on board, but also get them a lower level and actually, not actually be veteran focused. Like they say they're veteran focused, but they're not. And I'm not saying that. Yeah, they're given the opportunity. They're taking advantage of it, and it drives me absolutely bonkers on it.
It's a emerging challenge for sure, right? Because you have people that are coming out, and I think that there's some expectations they may have coming out because and Overwatch's primary line of business is owners representation, construction management, and consulting, right? Project management. The other side is we grew so aggressively that we were using Orion International, Orion Talent, or Bradley Morris, or Scuttlebutt, or you name the military recruiting group. And at some point, we probably put some work underneath them to staff our team. I'm like, look, why can't I just do this myself since I had so much demand? And then I would start farming it out to other parts of the industry, right? And in doing that, I had a lot of engagement with people transitioning out. And in some cases, they're like, hey, I make this much in the military. I should make 50% more than that when I get out. And I'm like, if you were to go work for a contractor that's working on submarines, but if you're working in a completely new industry, like this is still in its infancy, this industry, would you agree? I mean, there's not another industry that reinvents itself as aggressively as we do.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But it's an exciting thing because I think the advantage of the emerging growth that this space has. I mean, think about it. We don't build data centers the same way today that we were a year ago, and it's not going to be the same way in a year from now. So if you can find people that are comfortable being uncomfortable, reinventing themselves all the time, that's a good thing. That's an advantage. The second part is if you look at, I used to value experience a lot, right? And then I learned that it didn't matter because to that end, the way that we build data centers today is different than we did a year ago, and it's going to be different a year from now. So your experience advantage really only has a shelf life of a few quarters until what you became really great at is not obsolete, it's just outdated. And you have to be striving to reinvent yourself or learn something new, because if not, then as soon as you've arrived to something, then there's another element, like the focus that you have. You're on a very necessary and targeted focus of our industry, right? You're not trying to chase down hyperscales, I don't think, with that product, which is what represents the largest adoption rate of emerging technology in our space. But there's this huge need for edge solution, right? So why wouldn't you bring in someone from a submarine community that's like, oh, okay, so this is how we always did it? Cool. Let's figure out, not knowing that this is how we always did it, let me step back and from the outside looking in, find maybe a different way of doing things. Yeah. And that's reinvention.
No, I agree. And you're going to approach different customers. You're going to pitch it very, very differently than someone who's traditionally trying to do this inside the industry or try to sell what is edge. And that's what my whole big premise is, edge, it doesn't really matter as a physical infrastructure person. It all counts to a platform that we have no clue about what's going to happen, what's going to be adopted, but it's going to require something different from everyone. So it could be a data center that's on top of a building, could be in a parking garage, could be in the desert, could be in the forest. Doesn't matter, and I don't care. All I know is I have to have the ability to find the land and deliver it and make it turnkey, all in our kind of an OpEx solution, and so it makes it super simple instead of trying to define, is it 5 milliseconds, 2 milliseconds, 2 miles, 3 miles, tier 2, tier 3, I just don't care.
Is it designed to create like a tether between availability zones?
No, I think, but it's who knows? It's a platform. So the platform defines it. A smart city is going to require something different than a smart road. What's going to require something different than a CDM? What's going to require something different than an IoT? What's going to require something different than an IXP? It's all different, and it's all going to require something different. So, and essentially, it's going to come down to is you're going to have data centers everywhere. all for a specific platform, all for a specific use case, and you can't try to define it by saying, well, I'm going to define this as 2 milliseconds from Austin, and so I'm going to build a 2 megawatt data center. It's more like, here's a platform that needs 24 racks for the specific use case. All right, where do they need it? How do we deploy it? How do we make it easy for them?
So, you take all this management and leadership experience, because there's a big difference between those two things, but you have, think about a 38-year-old running a $4 to $5 billion submarine and all the souls that are on that boat that you're responsible for. And then you've been in the data center industry for 7 years.
Yeah, 7 years roughly.
And you worked for some of the biggest groups in the space. What is it that you've learned in that short amount of time so far that has had the greatest awakening within you?
I think it's just, it comes down to learning that, first, I think on one side, technology drove a lot of the decisions I was making and how we're building. But now as I transform to this side of the industry, it's learning that the business actually drives it, and how the business drives it, how do you make that product that enables that business success is what makes the difference, as I guess has been the biggest learning experience.
So there's enterprise end users, there's operators, and then there's there's the ecosystem, the architects, the engineers, all the trades, all the people that build these things and bring them to life. What have you seen as a trend in that? There's massive shifts since you started in the space. What are some of the biggest ones that jump out at you?
I think it's, that you have this whole trend now of, is it construction or is it manufacturing? And so with stick build, but now you have this time to market where me as a consumer would say, I hear you 3 years, but I want a year. So how do you build something that turns into more to pre-manufacture your concrete, and it's more like a Lego assembly on site?
But what's the advantages of even doing that?
It's all time to market. All these cloud, the clouds and platforms care about time to market. How quickly can you deploy capital and receive revenue based on what you're saying? And how quickly can you beat out your competitors in that location where you're at right now? There's a reason why they always say first company in Mexico, first company that's out of Africa, first company that's in, X, Y, or Z. It's all about first time to market to grab that foothold, because they know that once you put your data in, it's super tough to get your data out or your platforms out.
I get that, but what would make someone, first of all, what made you go to an operator you spent your career either in the military or on the enterprise side. What made you discover that this is the next challenge for you, is being on an operator side?
I think it's, what I loved about being on the consumer side is what I knew. So it's some form of function. We're running submarines, whether it's, mechanical, electrical, hydraulic, whatever. It's very similar to consuming that and building that. But about, I look back about a year ago and I was like, well, I kind of want to build something that lasts with my own mark on it. So it wasn't just replicating a platform for SaaS or PaaS or IaaS to make money. It was, what can I do differently in the space that I can look back in 10, 15 years and be proud that I did it. Maybe it's a small deployment, maybe it's a lot of deployments, I don't know. But I wanted to kind of get in there and do something a little bit different, that where I had to develop my own platform, develop my own product, and deploy it. And I'm whether I'm successful or not, it's based on my own merits, not based on a bunch of other things.
So that product itself, right? When I ask you what's the advantage of, those modular deployments, I always looked at it more as a QA QC thing, because when you're building in a static environment like that, you don't have all the trades standing on top of each other. And that's where, you're taking a lot of time out of the field, which allows you to work on elements of the program in parallel to each other, both in the static environment and the dynamic one that takes place. Where a lot of the risk is really in the field, is these trades are standing on top of each other. But do you see that model, time to market, quality wise, but does it still pencil?
I think it still pencils, because it's not necessarily a money game. It's more, if I can build a module, let's say a megawatt, and deploy in 6 months as opposed to a stick build, which may be 3 years, I think it does pencil. Or if I just need small use cases and I deploy to all these 1,000 locations around the world, it's very tough to build that kind of stuff. It's much easier to build as a module and deploy it.
So how does it be no longer, where is it? what is the tipping point where the speed to market is so great that people would be willing to suffer an inconvenience of any kind on cost
I don't know. I think it's probably somewhere around 3-4 megawatts or less.
Is that it?
I mean, the only use case I could point to is really AWS in Brazil with what they're doing for the local zone, which is they're building out of 4 megawatts out of modules. And it's a time to market play, and it's what you talked about, which is a quality of work play.
What are they doing with that? Do they like co-generate to the grid and put power on the grid in peak shaving mode?
No, I think they just, they build a platform where you have power modules, cooling modules, and white space modules, and you Tetris that together and you make a data center.
But it's kind of have like a parking lot lay down space, and they're just stacking the Tetris.
Like you play with Legos. You have your yellow Legos and your red Legos, and you put them all together and you make something.
Do you see us going that direction?
I think it makes sense for certain ways, time to market. I think you can't do that at, 5, 10, 20 megawatts, but you can do it at the smaller 2, 3, 4 megawatts where the time to market matters, your ability to get there and deploy matters, or maybe you don't have enough space and you need to try to Tetris that in. It's just like, let's say you have a retail data center and you're capped out at 10 megawatts and you're all concrete and you still have 50% utilization. From how are you going to grow that? Sort of demolishing. The only way you can do that is kind of expanding out into your parking lot. But then now let's try to treat modules as capacity like servers. And so let's say a module takes 14 days to build. It takes you a week to ship it, and it takes you a month to permit it. Now you have a steady capacity. You can continue to add this white space, and you just treat it like server capacity. And you don't overbuild like you do in a hyperscale. It's just in time delivery of white space.
But what's the biggest factor? Is it designed more for those parking lot laydowns, or can you put them on roofs?
You can put them on roofs. You can put them anywhere. And that's the whole point. Is you design to the worst spec, and then you mass produce it. So treat it like a Dell computer. You can make.
So it's a product that will it be UL listed, whatever?
UL listed.
Okay. Yep. So it's really a plug and play then?
It's a plug and play, turnkey, but you can use bus bars, PDUs, whatever you want, different size racks, but you can't change the mechanical electrical because that changes the production manufacturing aspect.
Do you see operators adopting those, or is that more geared and targeted towards the enterprise groups that are?
I think we're seeing a bunch of different ways to see it. I think where we're seeing now, immediate term, it's retail sites that have run out of space, so easy way to pop this stuff in and expand their capacity. It is enterprise and telcos who need to modernize, and so instead of trying to worry about their business and shutting down racks, going from 2 to 3, 4 kilowatts per position, going up to 10, they can just deploy this next door to it and long line it. It's solving those poorly designed enterprise data centers that are 60 racks that they don't want to go to the cloud, but they don't want to go to the retail site. So you deploy on-prem for them. And it's also something like, studios and hospitals and stadiums that need, AI and machine learning on-prem, but they can't do it in their AV closets anymore. So you're providing that capability to quickly, easily install it and then augment it as needed or take it away if it doesn't work out.
I almost look at like a load bank where during the holiday season, let's arbitrarily say the manufacturing retail side, you could deliver them for 4 months during, peak shopping season to where, normally they're going into cloud bursting, but now they're getting this as a service. What's the big competitor for you? Is it another group that does modular solutions? Is it the stick build group? Is it the cloud? I don't think there's everybody in this competition space, because I think there's someone who will build and sell by the rack. That's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to build to one customer and they could sell by the rack. I'm not trying to do that. And then we're not trying to give customers a lot of, use our design. I can provide you cost savings using Compass money and kind of our inroads into. You're like the financial. So it's like Compass Financial Services.
I provide super low dollar value because I'm borrowing at Compass rates. Also, Compass has a hierarchy with our electrical mechanical suppliers, so it's not Tony Grayson, $100 million. It's actually Compass $3 billion, and so I'm using that same people to buy from, and so I'm on their supply chain. I have the same kind of leverage that Compass has, but I'm just going at the very specific market, which is very small, modular, anywhere.
are there any way, I mean, like, have you packaged that around specific applications that make it
No,
easier for
it's
people to figure out, hey, I could use it for this or this,
no.
versus saying it does this, use it for what you want?
I think that's where we really need to, kind of do the evangelization on there, because it's like I could do an HPC, I could do an AI, I could do an ML, I could do an SD-WAN, I could do a compute, I could do virtualize, machines. I don't care what you use. I'm just the wrapper, the white label wrapper that, supplies that kind of capability for a customer. And so I want a person like NVIDIA to come in, deploy their GPUs, they slap NVIDIA on the side, and we're just a silent partner providing the capital to make that data center happen, where they're just focused on the IP and the inside. It's kind of, imagine white labeling or, BASF, where who knows what BASF actually does, but they're behind everything, and they're just the silent partner in the background. That's all we're trying to do.
So what's the big push for evolutional? Like, how do you evolve that product? Is it trying to get it to, be a smaller footprint?
No, I think the first one really was what we've done with this iteration, which was what's the right size? We'll get the majority of the customers in a cost-effective solution and give them enough options where they can actually use it, but I don't break the production cycle. So, it's exactly why Dell does a certain form factor for a computer, where you might want something bigger, but they're not going to do it because it breaks your production line. It makes it super cost expensive. So we have that initial Lego, if you will, of 100 kilowatts at N or 2N solution. Once we get that done, we can always stack these together and you can go out sideways. But I think there's another version where you build this in the 1 or 2 megawatt, in which case you have your white space modules, you have your cooling modules, and you have your power modules. And that gets that higher density, not higher density, but kind of, larger footprints, because it's also with this smaller density, it's not that tough for me to add rear heat exchangers or immersion if they really want it, or chillers on it. It's just, it's
So
designed.
they can customize all that?
They can customize all that kind of stuff, as long as you don't break the manufacturing process.
And what all is included in that?
Instead of a mechanical DX solution, you put chillers on the outside of it.
What about you have I've seen these containers. Tell people that are listening for the first time, I mean, that business unit that is the parent company's Compass for, is it Quantum now?
No, it was originally called Edge Point.
Yeah.
And I really didn't want the word edge in it, because I think edge connotates something, and we're just going to argue where it should be deployed. So I just made it Quantum.
I see.
Yeah, it's my physics,
Okay.
background, the false music of the smallest bit of matter, smallest bit of data center. So we called it Quantum, which you can Lego together.
But that still implies that it's designed towards a very specific compute density.
It's designed right now. It can do any compute density. It can use reader.
What's one block? I've seen the container at the parking lot.
Yeah, one block is traditionally 2N.
But is it like 250 kW a click?
No, 100 kW 2N.
Okay.
12 positions, and so that seems to be the kind of standard block. People might want 8, people might want 6, people might want 24.
And people could get that without buying it? They could.
It's an OpEx, total OpEx model. It's a lease model. I prefer to have a lease model. And so it's not like, retail. It's actually a lot cheaper than retail. So call it wholesale at the edge. I don't know. We're still trying to figure out the marketing term for it.
When you guys do that, though, do you guys sell like the services that go with it?
It's a lights out data center. So we have a whole software layer, control the HVAC, mechanical. You have AI alert on your cameras. You control security remotely. If someone's trying to break in, you have the ability to sound an alarm. You have lux sensors on there.
What do you see? Like, so the evolution went from edge point to quantum, and then with quantum, the capabilities, it sounds like have evolved as well. What do you see it? Where does it need to evolve towards, or is it already arrived at some evolutional pivot point where it hit a tipping point where people that, I mean, this is a very prevalent term. People are very aware of these power modules that exist. And what is it that's stopping people from just racing more towards that?
I think to be honest, if you go to purposely build or design a module, it's expensive. If you have, if you go to an engineer and have them design something, all these companies will do it for you, but you're going to pay for it. I think if you look at it from a manufacturing aspect that we have, give the customer a lot of choices, but not break the manufacturing process, we can actually build it cheaper than a regular traditional customer that's out there. We can actually build it shorter. We're building our modules right now, and don't quote me on this because we're finishing up our prototype, but I think we're going to be at 14 to 21 days to build a module because we're not using welding, we're not using concrete, we're using a composite, which is more sustainable. Everything's bolted together, so more tolerances, cheaper labor. Everyone can work on top of each other because you don't put the wall into the end part. It's a total ground up thinking of how you build these modules in a true manufacturing process.
So I think we're all aware of the massive pressures that exist in supply chain.
Yep.
Has that impacted you guys?
I would say if I didn't have the Compass name, yeah, it would have impacted me a lot. I think with a Compass name, I just say, hey.
Yeah. They have such a massive
And
purchasing
to be honest,
strength.
I am not buying anything. Mechanical spec to a certain extent, but you want the customization to minimize. And so we're building, we're trying to take as much off their assembly line as we humanly can. So they're already building it globally. We're just putting in our units. Like I don't want bespoke stuff. I want, stuff they're building in bulk.
Stuff that's easy to maintain too, right?
Easy to maintain. And that's why, I got super cute with this module design. I was like, Tony, technical person, we're going to do fluid economization. We're going to have a 1.05 PUE. But in the end, who's going to maintain that? You're dependent on Joe Bob, the sheriff, who's also the plumber and the electrician to go out and fix a mechanical unit. He's going to look at that fluid economizer and say, I have no clue. And so it's, you can build for the edge, but I think it really has to be super, super rugged. In which case, if an HVAC goes down because you're 2N, you don't want to care about that. A truck roll is super, super expensive. And so you just want to, next time they come out the fixer, to replace the filters, they fix the HVAC too. It's, so it's how do you mass produce something that's super rugged that can go anywhere and offer a incredible amount of value? Because to be honest, the IP is not on the module. It's our module design is different, but it's on everything that goes inside of it, whether it's bare metal, virtualized machines, and SD-WAN. Like that's what makes the money. That's where the IP's at.
So where's the sweet spot? What's the strike zone look like for that product? Like who's the ideal candidate?
Right now, the ideal candidate is, it's enterprises looking to modernize. It's telcos looking to modernize. It's retail and hyperscale looking to expand. They almost treat it like server capacity so they aren't stranding all this power. It is encapsulating companies who are focused on compute and virtualized machines, providing the wrapper for them to go anywhere. It's SD-WAN solutions. It's it's all over the place. In fact, there's 77.3 billion right now in middle mile, last mile. That's all going to be edge.
So, but all those factors that you're talking about are technology, right? But you were talking about how technology, you thought the technology or the business, but the business is what drives the technology. So that, I guess the way I look at it is through the optics of a CFO as an example, where they're looking at it and they're saying, everybody looks at what they're doing in this space. Because let's be honest, I think that most of the people that we engage with, they're armed to the teeth, right? They're pretty sophisticated buyers. And they kind of have an idea of what they want. At least, they have an idea what the strike plate, the strike zone looks like. So for them, what do you say to the business?
The business side is you got to have the ability to deploy something quickly anywhere. So you don't know what your future platform is going to be. You don't know where it's going to have to go. You don't know how much you're going to need it, and you're sure not going to be able to hire a team to make it happen. So it's when your team develops that platform, whatever that is, self-driving cars, flying cars, you're going to deploy the infrastructure for that quickly, and you're going to have to depend on teams to be able to do that kind of stuff. So it's kind of, you have to not be rigid, like I'm going to build in downtown Chicago, I'm going to build in Montreal. You got to have the flexibility to go, give me a lat and long, and we can deploy something for you. Oh, by the way, it's an OpEx model, so it's not going to affect your P&L aspect of it. It's just an operating.
I think that's the big kick right there is that, I don't think I realized until just now that it's preferred to be only an OpEx model, right?
It's preferred, and we can manage it for you. Like you don't have to make a NOC. We can have our own, NOC
you
take
could have
care
your own
of it.
NOC monitor.
We'll dispatch. We'll dispatch. You still get the alerts and everything if you want to. You can go look at the, the cameras and the weather stations on wherever you want. But we'll take care of all the operations and let you know how it's happening. So you don't have to hire this. You don't have to hire a separate site selection team. You don't have to hire a separate operations team. Go ask a data center person to go find, 1,000 sites across the world that have 2,000 square feet that can handle 300 kVA, and they're within a quarter mile of fiber. everyone's going to balk at that. It's you know.
When I first started in this industry, one of the first jobs I had was with a company that was formerly known as Active Power, right? Do you ever remember that?
No.
Have you ever heard of Pillar?
Mm-hmm.
So they're almost they were the original powerhouses, behind rotary UPS, and based in Europe. But Europe actually created almost like this false economy by really taxing the shit out of batteries, and rotary, battery-free technology became something that was really, really critical over there, right? Not just from the footprint. I mean, like, you could have a rotary UPS system is typically a lot smaller than a traditional static double conversion UPS with battery cabinets. And real estate is a premium in some markets, more so in New York City than it is in Texas, right? But those factors, that whether it's a socialist economy or real estate's at a premium, there are certain things that make that application easy to discover as the primary or easier solution versus the one that says, hey, we can do that, but what's going to be faster, what's going to be cheaper, whatever. We were doing modules or powerhouses, in partnership with HP actually back then, where we were like basically taking a UPS, ATS, and a generator and putting in one module and putting, all the IT infrastructure with a mechanical permutation in the other, marrying them together, and we could put them on a crane and put them on a roof, or we could put them in a parking lot. But what has been the biggest barrier, you think, to getting the adoption? Because that was years ago.
I think it's this total. We've been, decentralized and been decentralized. Now we're back to being decentralized, and I think it's just the drive of technology. It's kind of regulations. It's what FinServ requirements are. It's GAIA-X. It's personal privacy. It's just, or it's even costs of where the data is at. It's stop sending the data to the cloud, bring the platform to where the data is being generated. I think all this stuff is having an effect on all this stuff right now. And your phone right now, to be honest, hasn't generated a lot of data. We actually have true 5G millimeter wave. Your phone's going to generate a heck of a lot of data. It's going to be your refrigerator that wants to order a new beer. It's going to generate a lot. Like, that stuff can't go to the cloud. It's got to go to someplace local. And so I think it's your Tesla. If someone's a quarter mile away that hits a pothole, do you really want that going back to Ashburn to decide if your car gets it? No, you're going to have some kind of local regulation that's going to see if that matters and push that data out to all the Teslas in that area. I think it's just the technology it's evolving. And the problem comes down to, from a financial sense, is you don't know what that is and you don't know where it's going to be. And so you can't build ahead of it. So when it breaks, how do you quickly deploy it and integrate it instead of waiting 5 or 6 years to actually get the revenue from it?
I'm waiting to see. There's always a tipping point, right? Malcolm Gladwell has that narrative. I mean, I think Simon Sinek picked up with some of his TED Talks and talked a lot about how, there's a lot, let's just say 100% of our market that gets it, right? But there's really only about 4% that you're really targeting to, and they get it just as well as you get it. And, the early adopters that follow, because this is a herd mentality, right? People are always hesitant to be the first to adopt something because of the risks that are associated to that. And then once they see that it's safe to go in the water, then they all dive in, right? And how far are we from seeing a big tipping point to where we're building, like right now, when I got in the space, I remember 1 megawatt deals were big, right? And I remember, I was on the phone with one of our clients today, and we're going to do multiple phases of 14 to 16 megs at a click, right? And that's no big deal to them because they're doing that like all over the place, multiple different operators. So, we see these huge shifts going back and forth on what size appetite people are buying blocks at a time. At what point, and will it be an emerging technology stack? Will it be, like you said, IoT was the big engine for things, but now we have autonomous driving vehicles, as you talked about, or, drone technology, not to mention AR, VR, AI, and EIO and all those things, right? So what will be that point where enough people have discovered the value in this product to where we just start seeing that becoming just as mainstream or just as prevalent as we see 12 megawatt deals going down, every quarter?
Yeah, I think it's going to depend. I think you're seeing it now as a quick solution because it's a time to market play. That's what it really comes down to. It's a quick time to market managed OpEx play is what's solving it. I think that what the technology that's out there for those platforms is still yet to be developed. I think once we have true 5G and your phone, end users, you are generating that much data, it's going to force everyone to re-architect how they're developing solutions.
What will force them though? Is it like the eyeball content, video caching?
I think it's just the amount of data your phone won't be able to produce and have the bandwidth to get that data out there will force into some kind of a re-architecture of it.
What's that data? Is it being driven by the consumer or is it business to
driven by consumer?
Okay, so what will that data look like? Do you think?
I don't know. It's just going to be a lot of it.
Well, what do you see? What are some of the emerging technologies that you think that are going to be faddish versus those that are going to just continue to explode?
I mean, I think it's, everyone's trying to do the true 5G. I mean, they're already talking 6G, but 5G we really don't have right now because it's not millimeter wave, so it's really not getting the bandwidth that we think we're going to generate right now. Once we hit that, I think each user and each refrigerator will generate enough data where you're going to have to cache stuff locally. You can't. It'll be too cost prohibitive to send it to the cloud. Your local, whatever, it's going to have to kind of arbitrate where that data goes and how it's used.
So what will that local look like, though? I mean, like, where will all my refrigerator data?
Yeah, but I think you're total a ground re-up architecture of what's happening right now. You can't use traditional 5G. I mean, you see it with, I think Autonomous Institute has developed these pins right now, and these are, kind of 5G Wi-Fi enabled things that go on each street corner. That's the kind of infrastructure that is needed, but it's all going to backhaul to a local place, which is going to backhaul to a bigger place, which is going to backhaul to an even bigger place.
But you're talking about like city infrastructure.
Infrastructure.
So that changes who the target audience is because it's no longer an enterprise. It's a level of government that needs to do that to support the growth.
Yeah, that's the problem right now. It's, is AT&T or Verizon will be able to tell their bosses, hey, we know we just spent all this money on 5G. Now we're going to have to double down and develop more on how do we, get the most out of what these platforms are developed right now. And I think that's the holdup right now. That's why you're seeing all this private, government kind of stuff coming down with smart cities and or smart roads and or government grants to kind of get in there to give them that kind of infrastructure bandwidth to piggyback off of so they can write their platforms.
Are there any security advantages to having those quantum?
That's a good question. I think, the good thing about it, it's super local. I think you can put enough physical security in there to alert people if there's problems to it. And they aren't calling home. So it's not like an outpost calling back to Ashburn, which could be across the national lines, which, kind of violates that security aspect of it. So I do think since it's hyper-local, you do have that personal privacy kept locally where it's not pushed to some data center. But there are, we're trying to figure this out right now is how do we make these super secure in the middle of nowhere that could still be lights out and autonomous, but still can maintain that data security and that PPI security.
Is there a, there's a hub and spoke of the fiber, right? We all know, NFL cities, and then you have all the suburbs and all the things that tether around it. Do you see this as the solution to fill the gaps and all the blind spots?
I think it's to a certain extent, yeah. So let me give you an example. So if let's say I develop this AI machine learning program, which looks at an MRI database and compares what MRI you have to that database and provides a prognosis to the radiologist that says out of 1,000, this has been the prognosis and this is the most likely thing. There's no way you're going to tie that back to some place that's going back to a hyperscale data center. It's going to be on-prem because it's latency sensitive. There's a lot of data stored, and it's going to be too much bandwidth to go back and forth. And so that's the kind of stuff that will need to be local. And so it kind of gets out of this hub and spoke. It's more about, how do you put that compute layer or the platform layer close to where the data is being generated?
I think it goes back again to that herd mentality, right? We could rationalize how solid this, it's a transparent and predictable delivery model. You have all the infrastructure in a very mature vendor management inventory program that you guys have created. But the hesitancy, people it takes a unique person to be the first, right? The people that are standing in line for 8 hours to get the iPhone, there's a certain person that wants to be first, right? They want to have that technology. One of the things that I always thought of about that technology that you're talking about, these edge pods, is to test them or introduce them and show the resiliency of them. Was when I worked for a data center operator, you got cutovers, you're doing maintenance, you're doing all kinds of things. And I was like, we roll up engines all the time for cutovers. Why couldn't we just put a module there for a month while they cut everything over? And then, especially if it could run at 2N, and you're not moving, all production over at one click. But even then, it's like a lifeboat that you could incrementally do little pieces and parts and use it. Like whipsaw it, you could bang it around quite a bit if you were to just be piling on loads and transferring through distribution and tethering like a lifeboat onto that while you're ripping out and replacing this. So all these aging infrastructure data centers that are out there that, think about it. The genesis of this vertical was what, late 80s or late 90s, right? And a lot of data centers that were built in the early 2000s are having a lot of challenges right now. A lot of outdated mechanical issues or end of life on the electrical. And, retrofitting those sites takes a very unique skill set, much like if I'm a GP doctor, right? But I went to medical school, doesn't mean I should be the person that's going to help diagnose your brain cancer, right? So that's a live environment where people normally can measure the downtime by lost revenue per second in hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not more, right? How does that application get introduced to where people can use it, like the operators can use it as an example, and just slide it around their sites as they need to do cutovers or ripping out and replacing, switchboards downstream of the, UPS output, or I don't know. I'm just arbitrarily saying there's got to be places in where this makes sense for when you need to do something.
No, I agree, and that's what we're seeing most use cases right now. It's that enterprise augmentation. Mm-hmm. It's the replacement for existing kind of older data centers where they cut over to this and it's their full-time solution for 5 years, or they build something in the background. Eventually, we take it away on this kind of stuff. So we're seeing
that would be okay, though, right?
Oh yeah, we're trying to do an operating lease model. So it's you sign a 5-year lease. You can buy it at fair market value at the end, or we'll take it away at the end.
I don't see why you wouldn't kind of look at it and approach it the same way you would a load bank.
No, that's what we're trying to provide, a service that's rentable. Now, granted, we want a 5 or 7 year lease term.
But until you get to that, you still got to get people to just, I think, the toe in the water, right? Where people are, okay, so now I've seen this work. We were able to lean on it during an emergency.
Well, it's who you rent it to. So, it could be, let's say the movie industry. Great example. So, like a Sony production will not sit there and they won't take something like a particular production cycle is 6 months to a year, but there's people that rent to that production cycle. And so you could rent to the providers of infrastructure to that studio for 5 years, but that little module might get moved down to Atlanta, might get moved to, Hollywood, might get moved up to Montreal as the production cycles change. And for us, it's always going to be the same. So it might have, let's say, 5 racks of compute or 7 with 8 racks of storage for one, or might have something that's VFX intensive, like they don't use green screens anymore. They use these big screens.
Yeah.
It might be 9 racks of compute, 3 racks of, I don't care what you put inside of it. I'm just trying to provide the wrapper that can go anywhere under an OpEx kind of managed solution. And so that makes it super mobile, super configurable. It makes it easy for the customer to use instead of trying to go to a retail data center and trying to build out a solution that may or may not work for you. They may not even have the space for you.
But to that end, think about it like this, right? The United States is broken into multiple, like if you were to, not to over-trivialize the U.S., but if I were to tell you about the Northeast, the first thing that would come up in your mind would be finance, right? Headquarters of all the banks.
Yep.
And if I were to go to the West Coast, then it's all high tech. And we're sitting in Texas right now. This is the headquarters of the energy vertical, right? And if you look at different patches, we obviously know where most of the automobiles in America are built, but the buying cycles, just like in Hollywood, like the production cycles of movies, they're not 3 to 5 to 7 years, right? So I could see how cloud bursting would still be a preferred outlet because they don't know what they don't know, but they do know if you're H&R Block, you're going to do 75 to 80% of your business in a 4-month span of the year, right? That means they're going to need a lot of compute at that period, and then they won't after that, right? But there's other groups that are like that, whether it's someone in Hollywood that's needing all that so they could do all their CGI, and then when the movie's done being produced or edited, then maybe they don't need that right now. Maybe they have another movie to roll it into, but if not, is there advantages to having a mobile
No, I think
solution?
there's definitely a mobile, and I think this is where you diverge from typical hyperscale business models, which is we wanted a 30-year triple net lease with a certain customer. I think we have to be more nimble of what we're trying to do with these smaller data centers because, they're cheaper. You can take a little more risk on them. And so what's that risk inhalable? Do you sell it? Do you do an IP-based IP-based sale just based on the design that you're doing? Is it a joint venture restaurant model where they're profitable and then you get 2% off the profits because once they're profitable, after you sell it to them? I mean, there's plenty of ways you can skin the cat to make this easier or make this beneficial for both companies. Because what you really want to do is be a partner to the company. You don't want to just be a provider to them. And so I think
Strategic partner.
a strategic partner. Yes, exactly. And so what you want them is using you for the next 15, 20 years. And so how do you make it very easy for them to adopt that where you benefit from it too?
I think what I'm trying to say is I see the value in it.
Yep.
But I still see the downside sometimes being that, like, again, going back to the load banks, those things get their asses kicked all day.
Yeah.
And then when they come off those, we get done with IST, then they go back to a shop and someone does maintenance on it and fixes all the cables that were destroyed.
And maybe that's the future right now. We just don't know.
I just think it's the crawl, walk, run into the space. Like, if you want people to adopt that, test it.
And I think that's what we're doing right now is, we have 2 prototypes that are coming off the line here in November. One most likely will go to a movie studio, one most likely will go to a compute company, and we're going to test them out and see what works, what doesn't work. And we have a couple sales coming up for a retail company, and then we have kind of enterprise replacement company. So, we're trying to really crawl on these kind of original or these new deals that we're doing right now to figure out what works and what doesn't work, and then we'll adapt from them.
Well, if it's a as a service, which really is what you're trying to do.
Yep.
I mean, those people that do, like I had Aaron Johnson on here from Sunbelt, and I've sat down with him a bunch of times trying to understand the economics on load banks. I do that with everything. I'm talking to a UPS guy, I'm going to want to understand the economics on those things. They know when they get done with those load banks, they're not deployed 365 days a year. They know how many days they have to be going before they pencil out. But like for this, I'm just trying to figure out a way in which it gets introduced in a way that mitigates the risk by the person or the group, because at least allows them to scratch the paint and test drive it, and then they could see it, and then they could discover their own application and use for it.
I mean, we're hoping that it's going to be treated exactly like a regular data center, that once you move in, you're never going to move out because it's almost impossible.
I agree with that.
Yeah, and so, but we're hoping that's the case, and we'll try to figure out how it is. I mean, we have to deal with certain kind of accounting rules, or we're trying to stick with the operating lease terms. But, there's a lot more room to be creative in a small CapEx environment that we're putting up in this space, as opposed to, $150 million data center where there's probably less room to be creative.
What I'm saying is, instead of trying to find one client that takes it for 3 years, what if you had 6 clients that borrowed it multiple different incremental periods over the course of those years? Yeah, there's mobilization.
No, and that's what you expected to get. I mean, your capital return back at a certain time frame, and then it's meant to go around and be used for different customers, and you're just getting a capital inlay when you've already.
I can see a client buying in on having one on their bench, as long as they could drag it all over their portfolio and use it for tethering or lifeboating.
And that's exactly what it's meant to be. It's meant to be transported anywhere. And so, it could just be sitting in their
static
home
would
thing.
be great. No one would, who doesn't want to have 10 of them sitting still on a 5-year modified gross, triple net, whatever, but have it sitting there static.
I mean, great example is, look, there's a certain cloud company right now that loves to test out their DCIM BMS system already integrated for their, kind of their commissioning. What if that just showed up in a trailer and you didn't have to wait for the whole thing to be built out? Like I'm talking your servers
That's
and
speed
everything.
to market. That's a huge impact.
That's speed to market. So all your sensors are the right sensors, except you're not relying on the network racks. You aren't relying on the servers. You get this module, it comes in, you plug it into it, you test your entire data center before your network side's built. And now you know if all your sensors work.
So if you have a really mature data center operator and they have the same product in arbitrarily Virginia as they have in Phoenix,
Yep.
it makes a lot of sense then to them. I think that when I worked for a wholesale operator, I would have been like, I don't know if I need it there all the time. I definitely don't know if I may need it for 3 or 5 years, but I doubt I needed it at that one location the whole time. But I could see myself easily sliding it around as needed and using it to support clients, demand. I mean, you get into the energy vertical, you always have those groups that are like, look, I have a peak demand of arbitrarily a megawatt, but most of the year I run it at 200 kW.
Yep.
Right. But when I have that burst, I would like that to be here for that 4 months. If not, then I'll shut it to my other site for those 4.
I mean, that's why I think it's you should be treating it much like your server capacity. And so you
shifting it.
You bring it as needed or you shift it as you need it for your business. You should not be treating it as a fixed asset. That's not what it's meant to be.
So I guess I'm just trying to always look for ways in which, like, I'm trying to figure out what that narrative looks like for guys like us that are out there with operators all the time, or half our clients are enterprise end users.
No, but I think it's a movable asset that is just a white space for your servers that can be moved wherever you want it. So
but there's a lot of clients that want white space, large aggregate volumes of it.
Yeah.
But they want it, like, I don't think I ever had a client that we were doing a program for that didn't need access to the space prior to us having the space commissioned. It seems like the ideal roll up to put somewhere and be like, cool, you leave it right here and we'll be live with your site in 2 months from now. And if you want to shift it over, or leave it there.
Yep.
And I guess I'm trying to figure out who's the buyer.
Well, imagine you're a cloud and you're going to a place that takes you, let's say, 3 or 4 years to build something. What if you could pick a module for your border network to go in with all your CDN platforms to go in? Once that's live, are you live in that country? That some of your platforms are already generating revenue that you already have your border network in, or is it when all the rest of your services go live?
Well, what about all these migrations? Okay, what about all the people that are looking to migrate and on-prem, off-prem, cloud, whatever? But how many times? I mean, there's companies that make a great living just doing pick and moves, right? But what if someone rolled up one of these things and did the whole migration to a truck and then drove it?
No, you could do that. That's that snowball to a much larger effect. Yeah, that would work too.
Have you guys tried to? Because I see that demand all the time.
No, I think for us, we're trying to work with partners who are smart in that kind of stuff. So, I would love to be in the storage space or the server space, the virtual, machine space or whatever space. In the end, we're just trying to do a good job at the wrapper. And so we're partnering with those kind of companies who can offer those services now to customers. And so they take care of the IP on the inside. We take care of the wrapper and all the logistics. And they're the front-facing people who hire us. And so we just support their business. And so I agree with you to some of those locations, but in reality, it's for those customers we're working with to figure out the business need and we're there to support them.
So what's the channel? How do you get this product to market?
We're trying to build those channel partners right now. And so it's, if let's say you're a compute company and you've been trying to sell your services, but you're limited to retail space, but now you work with us and now you aren't limited to retail space anymore. And so now you can go to a enterprise company and say, I can provide you a virtualized server platform on-prem, which we'll manage and we'll house in our own IT units. And it's just our IT unit.
And if you don't want to be at that location anymore, you can go take it to another location. Don't have to change the box.
Exactly. And we're just the white label supplier of the unit. We're the quiet people in the background.
So that channel then, so there's no one that has a stronger relationship in each market, in my opinion, than the local manufacturers reps. Because they're the ones that You go to Dallas, right? Think of engineering computer rooms up there, right? Those guys have a box at every event in Dallas. They know every contractor and vendor in Dallas, and they're already selling engines. They're selling powerhouses. They're selling everything.
Yep. I mean, or it could be just consulting firms that, hey,
like the MEP firms, like the
MEP firms that, hey,
put them into a spec or something.
You do a service for it. Let's say, we come to you to figure out solutions for us. So here's a white space solution you can offer. Or we're a managed service. We're already servicing your enterprise. It's leaking. You come to us to go fix it. Now provide this module for you. We're already managing it, and it's just a different extension of that. Or it could just be part of the construction. That's part of the actual bid for whatever that customer that is. And we're not trying to be cute about it. We're trying to work through customer or partners that partner with us that need our solution. We're just the quiet people in the background.
I think that there's I don't think that people understand how flexible those solutions are.
And that's what we're just trying to be, super flexible. I think there's a lot of companies that have tried to do it all. Like, I'm going to go out there, I'm going to do modules, but I'm also going to be an SD-WAN or virtual machine. I'm going to sell by the quarter rack, and those companies have not done well. What we're just trying to do is focus on the fundamentals that enables your business to be successful. And for all this other stuff, I can do it. So you need to move it, no problem. OpEx, no problem. Small, no problem. Big, no problem. We're just trying to be as flexible as we possibly can to enable you to be successful on that. You develop the use cases for it. Like, I'm not trying to go in there and say, Mr. Enterprise customer, I'm going to provide you a virtualized machine service in this on-prem models. I'm hoping someone sells that to them and they use us to enable it to make it happen.
I keep going back to the manufacturer rep model because in many ways they're already doing it. They're your competition because they have a line card with everything, and it's
No, I would agree. And so the manufacturer rep recommends a solution, and it could be a purpose-built solution, from their traditional wholesale distributors, or it could be an OpEx solution that's temporary.
Well, what I'm saying is most of those manufacturer reps are already band-aiding together something. They're trying to do what you're doing, where you've productized it and you all listed it. They're doing it already because, again, going back to the strength of the manufacturer rep per market is they're omnipresent. Like they're saturating that market with all their time. 100% of their focus is on one market. And, when you come from the manufacturer side, not the rep side, from the manufacturer side, you're trying to go an inch, deep and a mile wide, where those guys are just trying to go a mile deep in that one market. And they own those relationships. Those relationships they know what the barbecue is in the backyard of that guy's house because they were over there for his kid's birthday.
And that's exactly it. No, we don't want to. In fact, we price this out so we're making a margin on it, but we're not getting rich off it. What we want is a strategic partnership. And so that owner's rep comes in, recommends a solution, they get another percentage on top of it. So the end customer pays, let's say, $200 per kilowatt per month. We're only charging 110. The manufacturer reps get 90 for using us. We're trying to leave enough leeway for the channel partners to recommend those solutions where they can still make some money off it too for those kind of recommendations.
I think there's just a lot more in the roadmap of it, right? Because trying to crawl, walk, run through it as a buyer, not just as the person that's trying to sell it, but I see it as a stepping stone to get to Compass's bigger campus type of thing, right? Where you could literally go and anchor these things somewhere, and maybe longer leases are not as great. I mean, obviously Jared would want to slap me in the mouth if I said something like that, right? Because the finance is a factor, right?
No, but I think, but a 30-year lease makes sense on a $100 million data center. A 30-year
100%.
lease, it's not going to necessarily make sense at a 100 kilowatt data center. And so you're right. We're well into the crawl phase on this one still.
I think the industry is.
Yeah, exactly.
I think the industry is all struggling to figure out how do we know we have a product that is maybe I think 5 years ago, it was ahead of the curve.
Yep.
I think it was just too mature for the market to be able to understand how to buy it. And I think we're in that part now where people are always looking for, I think people were, like I said, I don't think there's an industry that reinvents itself as aggressively as us. And even things that were once looked at and looked over, people will still revisit because the timing may be right. But I think that there is more to that narrative, that roadmap on how this product that's very prevalent. I mean, you can't go to a conference and not have someone talk about a solution or a product that serves an element of one application that falls within this huge, flexible variety of options that you could use this thing for. And I just don't think that people have arrived on their own yet on how they can do it.
No, and I agree. And that's why the evangelization matters right now. That's why we're trying to get out the conference to talk about it. There's a million use cases for this. I don't know what they are. All I'm trying to enable is that we give you that Lego that you can go out there and build a business off of it. And we're trying to, dip our toes into it and figure out what works for it best. And that's what we're doing with our first 2 prototypes here in November. And we'll see what happens from there. But I don't know where they're going to end up, and I'm not quite sure.
What were they again? It was a movie house that was using it for production, so they could compute.
It's one of them is most likely to go to a movie house that's they can go anywhere, and they can over a 3-year period compute, change out the storage, whatever you want inside this movie house. And the other one is, I'm a bare metal service compute, and I usually go to retail sites, but now I don't have to. I can put something on-prem, and so they're going to put this on-site their campus, and it looks like an iPhone. So AHJs do not like containers anymore. They like something that looks sweet, and so ours looks like a big iPhone. So it's slick. It's very shiny.
Yeah, I guess if the optics matter.
Seams, optics matter, and so they're going to put it on site and put all their kind of compute services in there and use it as a use case of self-service. And those are the first units where they're most likely going to go. And then we have, some of the older, I shouldn't say older, but the previous generation are going to go fill spot capacity at a retail site that, they've ran out of. They have customers that come in or they want to basically take down 36 racks with them and they don't want to turn them away. So they're just going to put spot capacity in with us.
I think the case study with the content creator for movie content, I think that is the easiest one to that transcends. And I'll tell you how, everybody with a cell phone now is a content creator. Yep. You could make a whole movie on TikTok, right? So if there's going to be pent-up demand for more content creation, you almost have to have a network solution for these things for them as well.
And that's what, we're working with partners on that too. And so I'm by no means the expert on the compute and the network solutions. We're just trying to partner up with, if you take this, here's a network solution, an SD-WAN solution, an on-ramp for you, cross connects for you. Here's a compute spectrum solution we recommend, and you just pick and choose what you want to develop.
So if you're an enterprise, though, and you're in, arbitrarily, Virginia,
yep,
and you want to be in Chicago or Dallas, central U.S., the latency doesn't allow you to just go from one site to the country to the next, depending on, you could have, availability zones for, the metroactive replication, but can you not just find a piece on the map and put a network, if an enterprise wanted to be like, I'm going to put a network node right here.
Yep.
And I could tether them across the country in places that real estate is not at a premium. And that's how I could daisy chain you to reduce your latency, as an example, or something, so you could get all the way to Seattle.
No, I think it's definitely a solution. It's not the solution for everyone, though. And so I get it. And that makes sense to me. And that's why, Megaport and Equinix and all these people are doing very, very well as carrier hotels, Neutrality, Flexential, all those people. But there's some people who that doesn't work. That latency doesn't work. They need a lower latency. They need to be closer to the customer. And, we're just trying to be a part of that ecosystem as well.
I got you. Well, what do you, in the next 5 years, what do you see this product industry-wide, not just with what you're doing to try to champion or re-lead that offer or solution? Where do you see us? Where do you see the industry in 5 years with this application?
I think it's interesting because I think, what I really, really hope is we're going to make a lot of edge-type customers or enterprise-type customers super successful, meaning I don't think we'll ever...
Like who? Like what would that be?
I mean, like a compute company, an SD-WAN company,
okay,
a production company. Like we will make them successful by giving them the capability to deploy their services anywhere.
So they could support let's say their services are managed services.
So they can, they can manage. They can support an enterprise. They can support a city. They can support X, Y, or Z. We're just to enable, we make Cloudflare awesome, Alchemy even better, StackPath better, Sixtera better, Vapor.io better. You name it. All these kind of companies, we can make them better by giving them the freedom to go wherever they want at a low cost dollar.
Is there any emerging technology that this product lends itself to the greatest advantage? And as an example, you have esports.
No, I would say, I think it's a couple of them. I think it's HPC machine learning, so manufacturing on site, hospitals need it on site, even stadiums. There's this awesome platform called Waitlist. I think it's at the Detroit Pistons. So if you get up from your seat and you got to go take a leak or you want to go get a beer, it tells you the closest. It uses all these cameras to amalgamate all this information. It tells you where to go get a leak, where you don't have to wait, or where you can get the closest beer. So I think all these kind of AI, ML, camera stuff, are kind of quick solutions right now that kind of need this kind of stuff. And then there's, kind of the studio place. And I think there's still platforms being developed. I mean, there's, of course, the on-prem gaming, but a lot of that stuff you can do right now with local pops. Like you aren't doing as competitive. I mean, I imagine if you're doing those, the drones when you're going around the stadium, I think they need some kind of horsepower in the parking lot. But I think it's more near term. It's just kind of this point cases of augmenting existing AV rooms to account for these
I could see
higher
that
capacity racks.
Hell yeah. And that's why I said esports.
That's just the bridge. I mean, and who knows I don't know what someone's going to develop in the future. And so we just want the capability when, whether it's VMware or someone comes out with this widget that needs to go everywhere, that we can provide them that service to go everywhere.
What happens if arbitrarily Intel, AMD, Qualcomm, whoever it is that comes out with a new chip? What's the ripple effect of you because of that technology?
I mean, I think it depends on the density of the chip. I mean, just because it gets denser doesn't mean your rack density is going to go up, because guess what? You don't need to put many cores in a server if your chip density, the power density goes up. So I think it really depends on the customers. But what we want to be able to do is provide that flexibility through a use of mechanical cooling and or chillers to get those higher densities to meet the most amount of customers.
So to that end, because you mentioned HPC first, what is the density capacity? If I get 100 kW, I could go 2 racks at 50?
Yep. I think once you start to get to the HPC, they're typically not at 2N. What drives right now the 2N is the mechanical, and you'll switch that out to a chiller with rear door heat exchanger. So that kind of limitation goes away because you can purpose-built that in the same kind of footprint. But most of those are N. Like they don't want the UPS. They don't want that infrastructure. But they're still high density.
But they're
still high density. So
24.
And then I just need my power grid to come in and supply that. It's not UPS driven, and the mechanical is now driven by chillers. So in theory, you could have a megawatt in one of these little modules through chillers
without using water.
With using like a rear door heat exchanger.
Okay.
So using water through chillers.
I got you.
But not on, or you can use on chip too. It doesn't really matter. But some form of water cooling, you can do that in that small of an area. But most of them, like I said, they want N for their HP. They don't care about if that goes down. This goes to the last compute state, and so when you power it back up, it goes back up. They don't need this 2N. They need it on the storage side, but they don't need it on the compute side.
So do you see people using it more for incubator lab testing versus production?
No, I think you're seeing both of it now. I think you're seeing, universities that want it for the lab state. I think you're seeing actual application at stadiums and studios that need that HPC, or automotive or manufacturing that need HPC.
But I'm talking like from a disaster recovery perspective.
No, I think from a disaster recovery, that's interesting. We haven't, I think disaster recovery is always one of those interesting things to me because, I think a lot of clouds really don't, it's onto the customer to figure it out. And so I think our enterprise is thinking about that right now. I don't know, but I think we can provide that kind of capability for those enterprises to do that. And to be honest, that's just not a use case we've pressure tested a lot yet, but I do think it could be a simple use case for them.
Well, if you think about where we started, right, we were talking about one of the greatest advantages is being acclimation, right? Think about it like this. Like the paradigm shift for you was that, technology drove the business, now business drives technology, and maybe that evolved as you went from enterprise to operator. And if you think about it, there is we could kind of get lost in our own thinking based on where we're at.
Yep.
Do you agree?
Yep.
If you were Tony at Facebook still, what would that product have to have been able to provide you for you to have made a purchasing decision for it when you were at Facebook or Oracle or AWS? The way that you viewed it there from the outside looking in versus now on the inside looking out, where you're trying to place this somewhere to where it's easier for the next Tony to want to bring it on and go champion that to the people upstream of him to say, hey, look, this is what we need to have if we want to evolve to next. What did the product have to look like for you at Facebook, Amazon, or Oracle to want to buy it?
I mean, I think it's solving a solution that I was having problems with in a cost-effective way that wouldn't affect the reliability. So AWS, old POPs, old telcos, quickly deployment for local zones. GCP, the ability to deploy HPC that doesn't take up standard rack, basically. So the problem with HPC right now in a typical cloud is they have a different network, they have a different power density. So if I dedicate 64 racks to that, I can't fill them up with standard compute, and standard compute makes all the money. So what happens when you run out of standard compute, but you have all these HPC rack positions that are not being utilized? You can't do anything about it. So how do we get, HPC? How do we get these modules to solve for these HPC? So standard compute, which is much more predictable, can take all those rack positions. That's the same thing that could happen with, AWS and Azure too. At Oracle, it's the ability to, reclaim stranded capacity and also fill the need for dedicated regions, which are, basically you bring the cloud to a customer on-prem. And so now they don't have to rely on the on-prem data center. You can rely on the modules that can come with it.
I think it transcends beyond that, though. I think you could. It's not on-premise. I think that there's a carrier hotel play where, let's say you anchored yourself right outside why do we go to carrier hotels?
No, 100% agree with that. And we've actually had a customer that comes to us in Chicago. It's, hey, guess what? I'm sick of being here. I'm sick of paying these retail rates. The customer service. Can you find something within a half mile of that carrier hotel for 12 racks? You can find a parking garage and put them on the roof. Exactly. We found some parking spots because it's not that tough to find real estate right now with all these kind of parking garages or parking spaces. Or I'm a enterprise hotel and I want to expand my network in. But you could put your own there and tether everyone through. Exactly. With your own node. 100% agree. And now you just aggregated all of these people that are needing less than 100 kW to click, that are paying a massive premium to be in a carrier hotel. And now only one person pays that premium to be in a carrier hotel, and you still have access to all those cross. Yep, and we just backhaul everything. Hell yeah. Yeah, no, 100% agree. So I guess there's a lot of things that I could see this product still rolling out and doing. I'm wondering when we think that the tipping point will hit. I think, at least for the carrier hotel, what you're just talking right now will happen in the next 2 years because the U.S. government's spending $77.3 billion on it. So that'll happen. Whether we want it or not, that's going to happen. The U.S. government's spending $73 billion on $77.3 billion on last mile, middle mile. Interesting. This is all pushing broadband out to rural areas and reservations. But the federal government's $77.3 billion. In fact, the first billion is going to be going up the due dates, I think, into September for all the states. So it's government money that goes to the states. The states award the money, and this is all. So it's their infrastructure, and that's what we were talking about at the beginning. Exactly. It seems like it's a government play. No, it's a government play. So it's they're basically trying to get rural areas to have low-priced broadband around the U.S. So it's a great use case of it. Great, ability to do that kind of stuff, and I think that's going to happen super quick. Let's shift gears out of all the nerdy shit for a second. Tell me your craziest sea story. Man, I don't know if that's legal. How about this? Like, are you Blue Nose, Order of the Rock, Shellback? I've done the Blue Nose. I've done the Blue Nose. You did the Blue Nose? I've done Shellback. I've done old school Shellback. Not. So what's old school Shellback? Not the newest Shellback stuff. Stuff that would back in '97 Shellback. Where you got away with a lot of hazing. Oh my goodness, yes. Well, my Blue Nose ceremony was not necessarily politically correct. I could promise you that. This was on Memphis?
Yeah, and I had to shave my head because I had too much turbulin in my hair. I couldn't get anything out.
Yes.
Which I would imagine that I didn't do my mouth doesn't do myself any
I mean,
favors sometimes.
I think, the coolest sea stories would be like you go on mission and you're watching a world event that's being broadcasted by a world leader that they're saying, look how awesome we are, look at the might of our nation, but it was a total failure. And you have the videotape to prove it, and you go back out and you transport that out, and the president knows that it's all marketing. I mean, you're following another submarine. They think they're being all stealthy and stuff. They could be close to the U.S. or they could be close to following a carrier group, and you're just right behind them, and they have no clue you're there. I mean, it's all that kind of stuff. Or even stuff with the SEALs. It's just like, man, And to be honest, I miss those days because it's just there's one thing you can never find that I have yet to find in our sector, which is the team first mentality. I think people try to replicate that in the private sector. You just can't do it. And I think that kind of team first mentality and that kind of all mission where everyone's on the same boat and everyone's paddling hard and everyone has your back. I just think you can find it out here.
So I could understand why you'd say that. I would like to tell you that I think you can. I think that what we tolerate really defines the standard, not what we espouse to try to reach. And I think it's interesting. One of my first conversations with Chris, right when I just started this business, when we started Overwatch, and Chris was probably one of the first guys that we talked to, and I said, "Hey, tell me what someone needs to do to be successful for you." And I remember, I think the first thing he said was, "We don't need no heroes. We kill heroes."
No, I will say, and the next part of that, I think Chris is probably the first business I've worked for that where I really understood that culture eats strategy for breakfast, because if you have the culture,
100%.
You don't need strategy because everyone follows the strategy of what the company's doing because it follows the culture. And that is the first one where it's like, humility and pride and incrementals, the power of why, all this kind of stuff that he has had for the culture. I mean, it's like, I can't imagine how many times I've wasted on presentations, and this is both in the military, outside the military, to try to find that rock when you come and you're like, we don't want this. Imagine if you could just sit there and say, hey, I have a couple slides. This is what you're looking for, like this incremental, like this, and it's totally counterintuitive. You're actually going slow to go fast.
Which is better.
Which is 100 times better. It's like, and so, Chris is a great example of, I think that's the first time I've kind of realized, well, I've been doing this wrong by my entire career, but where you kind of had that team mentality.
I'll tell you that I have combat infantry people on our team, and they use that term a lot. It must be prevalent in their space, right? It's slow, smooth, fast. Yeah. And it didn't make sense to me at first. I just thought it was a really cool, tricky phrase, I guess. But I understand that now. I have learned that there's, we paint with broad strokes when we talk about veterans, but really there's different branches. And I say this as the youngest of a guy in every branch of service. The Army, they are exceptional at doing certain things in terms of what they're training, they're cultivating or conditioning, I think is a term that you used earlier. Like, yeah, we're kind of all conditioned to do the same for that unit, but not all throughout the military, right? So I think the Navy creates a very specific type of person. I think the Air Force creates a very specific, and as does, the Army, Marine Corps, Coast Guard, et cetera. And for us, there's a lot of Navy nukes in this space. And there was a time where I was like, there's maybe an advantage to being that. And you had said something earlier too that caught my attention, but I have learned that coming from a submarine background does have some great things that it teaches you, like your attention to detail with, danger tag outs or, things like that we had to do that I worked on energized gear. I mean, there's dangers.
Yep.
We're linear thinking in the way that we go through MOPs and SOPs, and we're checking through boxes and making sure that everything is being executed in order of the design. Like, we are really good at tactical execution. Whereas these combat veterans are better at triage, right? And they're conditioned to, again, being around these guys, they quote Tyson the most. Everyone had a plan to box me until I punched him once in the face.
Yep.
And I love how the combat soldiers are training, all day to do something. But once they go into battle, it's all hell's breaking loose.
And I don't mean to interrupt you, but it's just like you've seen that before in a nuclear plant when a drill does not go the way you think it's going
Because
to
they're
go.
not checking through the boxes.
Because they're not
fast
checking
enough.
through the boxes.
Yeah.
You can overnuke the crap out of
Hell
this
yeah.
stuff, and you do not you're very good if your initial conditions set up right and your indications come through and you step through the procedure. Anything outside of that, you suck.
Well, it's yes. There's a construct in how they need to execute, they think. And for these, I have these infantry guys on my team, and we have a lot of paramilitary mindset type people on our team. And not everybody's military. Half our staff is military, the other half isn't. And those ones that aren't, they operate just like those that were. And you would never know. If I put them all in a room, you wouldn't know which one was civilian or which one wasn't. And it's because they all kind of move alike now. And the combat infantry person, I discovered, I used to always just like, how many crayons can you eat in 1 minute? Or, there's always, the bullet sponge jokes. But the reality is they thrive under chaos, right? And that's all these delivery of programs are. If you look at every project, especially right now, somebody's transformer fell off the back of the truck or didn't ship on time, or somebody's thing got blown up in the middle of commissioning, or this didn't work because the electrician wired it out of phase, or there's always something. But the one thing that is a constant is the date in which you have to be live.
Yep.
And those people that have endured extreme pressure testing through combat have this unique skill to compartmentalize shit as it's unfolding and put it here so they don't lose focus on that. Where us in our drills would be like, wait, we're on step 11 and it didn't go well. 12 through 100 just failed.
Yep. No, 100% agree. And I think, if you would have asked me probably 6 years ago, I would have said I want a bunch of Navy nukes because I know the way they all think in a certain thing. But I think you don't want that. I mean, you want that's a recipe for groupthink. It's a recipe for messing up. You need all these different personality types all to come together on a certain team because you want, I want someone to sit there and say, Tony, you're full of shit. Like, that's wrong. How about think about this way? Or see it different. Like, I don't get it. And they challenge you. Like, I've never, once again, until, Chris Crosby and what he's been doing for the culture and how he hires people, you need that diversity of background, diversity of experience, and diversity of opinion because you don't want, like, the worst thing you can possibly have is groupthink, where you think you're awesome until you aren't.
Yeah, you want healthy conflict. You want opposing ideas to pressure test your own. It's the only way. I mean, it's to test your own conviction, so you have to be like, do I have a gut feeling, or am I just trying to rationalize what my idea is? Or it's bullshit.
Or is my team just telling me what I want to hear because they just want to go home?
They don't want to get yelled at.
And then, or they don't want to get yelled at. They just don't care. And I think you need that kind of stuff. So, to me, you need that broad team. And I agree with you. I think combat veterans, it's just bring a very unique mentality. That's why I love working, I think that much to work with Army and Marine Corps or Coast Guard or Space Force, but I worked with a lot of SEALs, and I love the way they approach things. It's just a totally different mindset. I actually found as a nuke, I found it incredibly refreshing that, they are not subject to...
They'll wing it.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like,
They're the tip of the spear on the infantry, right?
Yeah,
so
exactly. Like, we can't rally right here. We're going to have to go to right here, but
good. Let's keep moving.
Exactly.
It's not bad. They're like, all right, cool. Now we know how not
Exactly. And so it's just a different mindset, and I absolutely love that kind of stuff. And yeah, I do think we do have a lot of nukes, but we have to be smart about who we're hiring, and we can't just leverage one community. You have to take from all the communities and get the diversity of experience. Yeah, exactly. That is, when I talked about diversity, you're exactly right. That we're all taught to think the same, but there is diversity in each branch in their MOS
100%.
and how they do it, and that's what you really need.
I think that's what we're striving for. Like, our very first Ovita candidate, she was an aviation boatswain's mate, right? And aircraft carrier, I think she said she launched like over 120,000 planes in her career. And I remember interviewing her, and she was the first one we hired. And I was like, this is what I know, that you're going to be great, but you're going to outgrow us in less than 2 years. So my biggest challenge will be trying to keep you challenged. And sure as shit, we had her on a Compass program, and then she's at Rosedon now. She's a PM there. And think about it. She came from an aircraft carrier with 5,000 people, came to a startup, which is like a submarine.
Yep.
And she wanted to go back to a big ship, like a Rosedon that has 5,000 people plus in the field. It made a ton of sense for her to go thrive there in a larger environment where she's immersed with thousands of people, right? And I think that, I have a damage controlman from the Coast Guard. I don't know if I would have ever went out and tried to find that person or looked for that profile. I definitely would not have. However, she's exceptional. And we've put her on multiple programs and every client loves her, right? And we'll find a way to always maintain, some sort of developmental growth for her because as long as we can continue to challenge these people, they're going to stick around, I feel.
Oh, I agree.
But the way that she approaches things they could not be more different than how I would have approached them because of the way I was conditioned to think like everyone else that was on that boat, right? And that's a good thing, but there's a diminishing return, right? So me in the business that we're in, I know that you're committed to helping veterans just as much as we are. And we love helping our massively sophisticated clients create these facilities that help unleash all these emerging technologies that improve the lives of all of us, right? From the way that we entertain ourselves to the way that we, have our doctors of practicing healthcare by giving us more things or access to data faster to diagnose people quicker, I guess. But I love that. I love being a part of this. I think this industry is amazing. But the thing we enjoy the most, our purpose is to help create more voids so that we could backfill them with more veterans, diversity-based veterans that are going to be like, okay, so if I on my, in spite of myself, discover that an infantry person or an MP or a damage controlman or a boatswain's mate can do these things. What about these other rates or MOSs that I've never even seen before? What can they bring? And I've learned to value experience a lot less. And I can is more important than IQ to us in some cases. People that are willing to just
you can't
work.
You can't teach attitude.
You just can't teach people. Either people are motivated or they're not.
Yeah, exactly. You can't teach the attitude. They're going to come. They're going to have a positive attitude or not, and they're going to work hard. They're not going to work hard. You can teach skill and that kind of stuff. It's just you hire for attitude.
I think this industry is amazing. But as we bring this podcast home, I always like to ask a few questions like, what would be your advice to a transitioning veteran right now?
I guess a couple things are reach out, getting some mentors. Don't make sure you get a couple of opinions because I feel like there's a couple of groups out there that will give opinions that might be geared towards the sector that may not apply to all the sectors. So make sure you're getting different opinions. Make sure you're talking to everyone. Make sure you're on LinkedIn and figuring out, kind of what groups you like with, and you're out there putting yourself out there and publishing on LinkedIn.
People can find you on LinkedIn.
Yep.
How can they find you?
Just Google Tony Grayson.
Tony Grayson.
Yep, Tony Grayson.
And if someone wanted to reach out to you?
Yep, you can easily reach out and DM.
Now listen, because I did that multiple times and you ghosted me or ignored me multiple times, more than I could probably count, I think. So if they reach out to you, you're going to talk to them,
No,
Skipper?
I'll talk to them. I talk to them. I think
I'm just giving you a hard time.
No, it's fine. And there was a time when I was working 150 hours a week.
I'm just fucking with you.
No, I know. But it's not where I wanted to be perfectly honest. So I'm in a much better place now where I can focus on what I love, which is doing what I'm doing with my own business and everything, but helping out the veterans kind of stuff. So
yeah, me too.
Definitely have the bandwidth to do that kind of stuff. So, email, text, reach out. I try to do my own podcast to help people out. Ask me kind of questions. I may not know everything, and I'm definitely geared towards more of the tech sector and answering those kinds of questions. But, the biggest questions out there is get advice from numerous people, but please don't sell yourself short. It's like you don't have to go to that defense contractor and earn a certain amount of money because it's easy. And I know it's comfortable, and it's fine if you want to, but if you want to get out there, man, we can do anything out here. We can build data centers. We can design nuclear power plants. We can design energy grids. We can, fly commercial airlines. We can do anything we want in the commercial sector. Don't sell yourself short. And the last one I have is, it's okay to be an IC, an individual contributor. Like there's some stigma for we have to be this manager all the time. I will tell you, most people with the biggest impact in the business are probably more individual contributors than they are in the management aspect of it. And it is just something that's so different than we're taught in the military, that we associate success with how many people we have under us, and that's not the same in the private sector.
All right. Well, let me ask you this. When you run into people and they have no idea what a data center is and they ask you what you do, what do you tell
I kind of tell them that, kind of all the AWS and
them? No,
Azure.
you're like what? Like I'm in data centers, and they're like, "What is that?"
I say, how do you think all your platforms work? And just start to have a conversation of, how the platform's architected. Like take an example of Facebook. There's a thing called the POP with all your updates, and if you want your cat video, that goes back to the data center, and how all that works and how that's integrated is kind of how the data center is built. And then if they really start asking questions, you can go into the network layer and the platform layer, and the difference between substrate and overlay and all that kind of stuff. Most people really don't care.
I wish that there was. I ask everybody that question. It's so hard to explain to people that don't know this industry because it's such a new industry still. Like if you were like, hey, I'm in the automotive industry, or I'm in healthcare, or I'm in, I mean, even if you say you're in the data center space, there's a big difference between a carrier hotel, a wholesale,
No, it's
retail,
or your
cloud.
networking or software or the facility or the IT side. There's huge differences.
I think this industry has to do a better job. We're working on that, right? I don't think that when we started DCAC, we didn't think the industry needed another conference. We just felt like it needed a better one. And, the way that we try to market and brand even Overwatch or this podcast is we try to get a little bit more disruptive so we could draw out input from others so that we could arrive at the best answer or solution to things. And I hope that over the course of time, when this podcast hits the street and after we keep publishing more, I hope that we continue to refine what that answer looks like, because there's a lot of people in this space that do a lot of really amazing things, that build these skies, these cathedrals, that serve as the home of the cloud, I guess. And it's awesome. Building these data centers is great. Telling people what you do for a living is challenging, right? It's hard to articulate what it is that we do because the industry is still emerging, but we have to find a way to do it to where people are appealing to it, right? Where they're like, that sounds like fun. I want to do that.
Well, it's also how you can make a career about it. How do you translate to what you're doing to being exciting, but how you can actually make a career out of it, whether it's your goals in another 20 years or your goals 5 years. And also what's that progression look like? Like some people are motivated by, I'm excited. What's the promotion for the next promotion, or how do we get to the next thing? And we just have to do a better job of explaining that, because I don't think we do that either. We just kind of talk in nebulous terms. Like you're a data center tech, you're going to go run HVAC. Not that people want to go run a mechanical system for the next 20. And there's some people who do, which is fine. I'm just saying there's others who do not. And we need to show them what that progression is.
Yeah, and we have to help them discover a better way to explain what they do.
Yep.
I make sure that arbitrarily here, Airline X's website never goes down, so you could always check in for your boarding pass. I don't know. I'm just making shit up. But there has to be a way to tie it back to the way that people don't realize how many data centers they touch a day just by using their cell phone.
Yep. No, I agree.
So we have to find a way to make it more. I know that like infrastructure masons and, I was talking to TJ at Stack, and he teaches at a community college, I think in Virginia, principles on data centers and stuff. And we have to create a stronger presence of some sort of stepping stones, whether it's from the military or from some sort of college or trade school or something that leads you where you see the light and you're trying to strive towards that. Like when you were a kid, you knew that you wanted to be a captain of a submarine. There's no one right now that wants to be a data center CEO or a...
No, you're right. And I think we need to evangelize better instead of, you can't just sit there and say, I'm going to make a course or a certification and expect them to come. It's
start from somewhere, I guess, but yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely have to start from somewhere. And it kind of gives them the base groundwork, but you got to get them excited about it in the first place.
Well, listen, I know that I probably hit you with a lot of questions, but what else do you, if people were to leave this podcast, what's the one thing you want them to remember most? Either, two things. What's the one thing you want them to remember most about you personally? Mm-hmm. What's the one thing you want them to remember most about your product?
I guess the first thing about me personally is that please reach out if you have any questions on veterans or transition. I don't care what background you come from or what service you've been in. I want to help you out. Or if I can't help you out, get to people who can help you out. And that also is, a lot of the jobs are, they're reference-based and not necessarily resume-based. And so 100%. Will help you, get you landed or point you in the right direction for people. And so that, I am dedicated to that, and it's something that, I have the time to do it now, and I'm super excited about that. And I dedicate a lot of my time to do it, so please reach out. And then the second thing is about the product is, we're still trying to figure out where this fits in the whole scheme and hierarchy thing, which we kind of talked about. But, what we're trying to do is make a super fungible solution that can go anywhere. That's turnkey, that is an OpEx based, and, we want to work to help your business. And so, you can label it for whatever you want, or, put your label on the side. Like I said, we just want to be the BASF, the white label supplier, in the background of everything, but no one knows what the hell we do. That's what we're trying to do.
That's what our whole industry is.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Well, listen, I appreciate you making the time to come sit down and tell your story.
Thanks,
and I hope to have you back on one day. That should give you enough time to think about some better sea stories.
Well, it's stuff I can.
Stuff you can talk about.
I can talk about
without having to kill me.
Exactly.
I got you. I understand those stories. So, but thanks again. I had a great time. So thanks so much, Tony.
Thanks, Kirk.